Stay tuned, you are watching the Expert Actor Draft.
Let me ask you a question. Is it bad to look past the bad mechanics and flaws of a game when it brings you so much joy? Well, there's two answers for that. If you're reviewing it publicly, then yes. If it's just your personal opinion, then no. But for some reason, a lot of people have a lot of problems with Mario 64 DS. For me, it's hard not to be biased towards something when it gives me so much nostalgia. And that's how I feel about Super Mario 64 DS. And that got me wondering, are all these claims just to bring down the DS port and make the original scenes better, perhaps? I'm going to review Mario 64 DS with no biases. No matter how much it pains me, I have to rag on this game. Compared to the original, Mario 64 DS hasn't been released as many times as the original. To my memory, only the Wii U and DS has ports you can actually get, with the DS one being the original and the Wii U one being able to port on the eShop, well, used to be. Going back and playing it again for this video, it made me realize that maybe this game isn't as good as I remember it. With the janky controls and an awful camera work in the original, and with such random bullshit so bad it can rival Star Wars Jedi Academy, which is another can of worms I'm not opening right now. Mario 64 DS has a lot of problems with, more than the original did. And as the launch title to the DS, it was pretty good. It was revolutionary too, a fully 3D Mario game on a console that came out a few years before the Game Boy Advance, which, reminder, had games that looked like this. So when this game was first released, it was pretty impressive for its time. And it also showed people how good a DS really was when it comes to 3D graphics. But nowadays, the models kind of look janky. They look better than the original. Those models looked kind of blocky and kind of eye-straining. The DS models look a little bit better and they're less eye-straining and hideous. Also, the colors are a lot more washed out in the DS version compared to the N64. It kind of gives it a desolate wasteland vibe, but how does this game hold up today? And is it better or worse than the original on the N64? Let's find out. But before we begin, go down and click the subscribe button. It helps me out a lot if you're feeling generous. Click the bell to get notified when I upload. I'm going to be more critical towards bigger companies than I was towards when I reviewed Five Nights at Freddy's. But with that being said, let's get on to my review of Super Mario 64 DS. Where else to start but the story? The story is actually different from the original on the N64, with Mario receiving a letter from Peach, telling him to come over some cake. But this time around, it's not just Mario, but Luigi and Wario also appear. They too want a piece of that cake. And I'm not talking about that type of cake, if you know what I mean. So like the dumb idiots they are, they go inside. Surprise, surprise, it's a trap. Oh no, who could have seen that coming? Eventually, Lacquer 2 gets concerned that Mario and the friends haven't returned, so he disturbs Yoshi from his sleep and forces him to go look for them. The outside is just the same as the N64 version, but this time you can't just enter the castle, you have to find the bunny and chase him around. Yoshi plays differently compared to other characters. He can't wall jump nor break blocks. He also can't punch. Well, he does have his flutter jump. He can also use his tongue to eat enemies, turn them into eggs, which can be used to defeat other enemies. The outside area is such a good tutorial. It has so many elements that you need to learn. You have water, which you can learn to swim in, trees that you can learn to climb up. It also has a big open area where you can do your long jumps and tricks. It has everything you need to learn the basics, and with the DS version, they amplify it with more stuff catering to Yoshi. I think Nintendo did a good job teaching the basics to first-time players. Once you get the key from the rabbit, you can enter the castle, and Bowser leaves you a message. Well, I wonder what he left me. Sounds like my mother. The castle is one of the most well-known hubs in any video game. It's so comforting when you walk in. The music, how slow it is, and how comforting it's out. Mario 64's music has that touch to it that makes it so good. Dia Dia Docs is my favorite track in the OST. Nay, my favorite song of all time. And that's not just including video game tracks. I mean of all time, it's so good. No song can ever beat Mario 64's Dia Dia Docs. I'm not saying the music is why Peach's Castle is such a good hub world. It's how familiar it is. Even playing it for the first time, I felt right at home. It felt so familiar to me. It just felt weird. It just felt like I've played it before. And the first level you play, Bomb on Battlefield, is one of the best introductions to a game. First of all, you go through this door, you see a painting where you jump into the painting. For the first time, it changes a person. It's like magic. I was in awe the first time I played Mario 64 DS. At that point, I was so used to playing 2D Mario games. I only played the original from 1985 and Super Mario Bros. 3. And the only 3D games I played at the time was WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2010 and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 on the PS2. So seeing a platformer I've only ever seen in 2D and 3D was amazing. Jumping into Bomb Battlefield, this is where Mario 64 DS shines. Instead of playing as Mario, which is what you did in the original, you play as Yoshi, which means the first level is catered to Yoshi's ability. Best example of this is with the boss fight. In the original N64 version, the boss fight against King Bomb, you have to run behind him, pick him up, and throw him. But in the DS version, you have to use Yoshi's tongue ability to eat bombs and throw it back at him. Later on, you have to fight King Bomb again, but this time you have to fight him like the original. But at this point, you don't have enough stars to unlock Mario, which you need 8 to unlock a secret door to unlock Mario. The difference between the original and DS version is that you have to unlock each character with a certain amount of stars. And without a specific character, it means you can't do a lot of levels. Now, technically you can beat the whole game as Yoshi except Bowser, starting with Bomb Battlefields, second star, race against Koopa the Quick. But you can't actually start the race with him without Mario. So you may be wondering, how do I beat this? Well, spread around each level there are character caps, and if Yoshi touches them, he becomes that character. And that's how you do a bunch of stars if you don't have the character. Once you unlock every character, you can start the level with Yoshi. You get a choice to choose what character cap you want. Sounds useful, right? Well, it's kinda a pain in the ass. Upon getting hit once with Yoshi with the caps, you lose the cap, and if you don't get it quick enough, which is like 2 seconds, you lose it and you have to find it somewhere else. And the problem is, you get hit by such random stuff all the time in this game. I'll talk more about that when I go into what bothers me the most in this game. After you collect a few stars, you can move up to the next level. You have 3 choices depending on how many stars you have: Womp's Fortress, Cool Mountain, or Dire Docks. Most people, myself included, always go for Womp's Fortress. This is my favorite level in the game, except it would be if it wasn't remade in Super Mario Galaxy 2. I'm joking, obviously. Having a game remade in a bad game isn't going to change my opinion on it. Womp's Fortress is the second level in the game, so just like Bomb Battlefield, it's pretty easy. But all levels on floor 1 are pretty easy. It's not until you get to floor 2, the basement, until stuff gets hard. If you have the Mario cap or any other character cap, you can break this block right here and get a mushroom that makes you big and invincible. Just don't fall off the stage. I didn't mention power-ups yet, did I? No, because there is no power-ups. Well, normal ones. There's no Fire Flower or Raccoon Tail. You get Power Flowers. When certain characters use Power Flowers, they get different abilities. Luigi gets invincibility, Wario gets the Metal Cap, and Mario gets a P-Balloon. Wait a minute. Hey, get your finishes out of my Mario game! But that's not the only thing Mario can get from it. If you collect enough stars, this light will shine down from the heavens. Staring into it, you'll be transported into the Wing Cap stage, and the switch will grant you the Wing Cap. What's weird about Mario and the Power Flower is sometimes he'll get the Wing Cap and sometimes he'll get the P-Balloon. At first the game is pretty slow paced, but that's not a bad thing. It takes time to make sure you learn the basics before you have to go to the basement. Before you can go to the basement, you have to face off Bowser. The first Bowser level is one of the most iconic stages in Mario 64. It takes everything you've learned up until that point and uses it to test you. Before you can actually enter Bowser's level, you have to unlock Mario. The way you do that is unlocking this door. Inside this door, you jump into the painting, and you have to go through this mini stage. As you might have guessed, this wasn't here in the N64 original. Mario 64 DS adds a bunch of new stars and 3 new levels. The 3 new levels they added are boss stages. Beat the boss at the end of the level, and you can unlock each character. The first boss you fight in these stages is King Goomba. It's a simple boss, running around, eat his minion, throw back at him. And if you kill him, you get the key to Mario's door. Going back out of the room and going into the hallway, the 4 doors, walking into this door unlocks Mario. Now you can go back upstairs and do Bowser's stage. Get to the end and Bowser's back to kick Mario's ass. Problem is, Bowser has a tail, which Mario can grab and toss him a million miles away. Oh no! Be careful, Mario, don't get spiked by the tail. Throw him by the tail into these bombs and get the key. Go back and unlock the basement. Each floor has a Bowser fight, with very little variation. The only variant these boss fights have is the final one, where Bowser is powered up with rainbows and he takes 3 hits instead of 1. Bowser isn't really intimidating, so making him the final boss and the other 2 bosses wasn't a very good idea. He should have just been the final boss. Now let's talk about the characters. The multiple characters is what gives Mario 64 DS the edge over the original. I already mentioned Yoshi, but I might as well mention him again real quick. Yoshi is probably the most versatile character. Like I said, he has a bunch of caps he can wear of each character. But again, like I said, you get hit once, they just disappear. You have to find them again, run over the area, and it's pretty annoying. That's why I don't really like using Yoshi. Even though, yes, he might be the best character, but then we have Mario, the all-around. In every Mario game, Mario is definitely the most balanced out of the characters, like in 3D World and Super Mario Bros. 2. Mario plays exactly how he did in the original. The only difference is him looking a bit different. Also, Mario's the only one who can wall jump, because everyone loves awful game mechanics. No, I'm being serious. Mario is the only one who can wall jump. It makes no sense. Why can't Yoshi? Why can't Luigi? Obviously I understand why Wario can't wall jump because, well, it's Wario. But why not Luigi of all people? Mario's brother not being able to jump towards a wall and slide down and jump off of it when he's already done it in multiple games. Maybe it's because he's a little too overpowered. I don't think I've ever thought I would say that sentence. Yeah, Luigi's overpowered. First of all, he already jumps higher than every other character. He also has a little flutter he can do that makes his jumps more accurate. In most games, Luigi is better than Mario. But in this game, what makes him so much better than any other character is his backflip spin. This makes him so much better than any other characters. Oh, you're struggling with a star? Just backflip, boom, float down to it. Basically, Luigi's broken. I actually have no idea how Nintendo didn't test this. So many quote-unquote hard stars become walks in the park with Luigi. Oh, I have to use a cannon to get to this star? Nope, backflip, see ya. When I tell you, you can beat all the stars so easily with Luigi, I'm not lying. Luigi is easy mode. And then, well, there's Wario. There's no peeking around the bush. Wario's the worst character. Looks like Stefan's back to rip the mightiest of ass again.
Stefan, no that wav!
If you know, you know. Comparing his abilities to everyone else, he's just really bad. The only reason why he's really here is breaking these blocks. He seems like he was just added to fill in space. But the thing is about filling some space is this empty slot right here, which would have been perfect for Waluigi. And there's no reason why he never gets used in these games. This game has a lot of annoying stuff in it. For example, the camera. Oh, the camera sucks so much ass. It's worse than the original. In order for you to move the camera, you need to take your hands off the DS and press these little buttons. This is supposed to be a DS game, right? Then why did you add this? Another thing they added was the thing they added to the touchscreen, mini-map, which is kind of useful, but not really. Especially because these levels are pretty small. It wouldn't be a good review if I didn't have problems with the games. And shocking no one, this game has a lot of problems. Dominic, how dare you say something bad about Nintendo? Yes, how do I talk about the multi-billion-dollar company? Contrary to popular belief, Nintendo makes mistakes. Big mistakes. I could make a whole 30-minute videos on all Nintendo's biggest mistakes. You know what? If I hit 1,000 subs by 2024, I'll do that. I was just talking about how the camera is so bad. Nintendo seems to have this thing with cameras. Like, they don't understand completely how it works. Like, Jesus Christ. Every time Nintendo makes a camera in a 3D game, it feels like they're remaking Iron Bread. Like, every time they create a camera, it's like they have a seizure. I think Mario Galaxy is the biggest offender out of all of them. When flipping galaxy to galaxy, it starts getting nauseating. With most Nintendo games, Nintendo seems to mess up even the most simplest features. Like the camera. Jesus, it's a simple camera, it's not that hard to get down. How do you keep messing it up every year? I swear most of the time Nintendo's staff is drunk while making these games. Another thing that kinda bothers me is the sound clips and how compressed they are. I know it's just the DS being underpowered, but just listen to Wario's voice.
Wario! Ho! Qua! Waha!
Which, yes, the other mainline Mario games on handhelds also struggle with this, but if I ever make a review of them, I'm obviously going to bring those up too. It's just that sometimes the DS can put out some pretty good sounding stuff. Just play a SpongeBob game. Lastly, every single person who reviews this game brings up the controls. My god, what happened? This is another thing Nintendo seems to not be able to get right. But Dominic, the new Nintendo games controls feel great. Yeah, the new ones, totally. Yeah, just go back to the Wii and play any WWE game with a classic controller, and you'll know what I mean. Nintendo seems to have trouble coming up with consoles games that they remake should go on. Like Virtual Boy Wario Land would have been perfect on the 3DS, but we never got that. Remaking a 3D game on a 2D control device is a pretty awful move by them. Putting Mario 64 on the DS was a poor idea. I'm just imagining Miyamoto at the board meeting like, alright boys, we need to remake Mario 64 for our new consoles. We should put it on the Revolution. No.
Handheld.
I understand what Nintendo was going for. To them, it made sense to show how powerful the DS was by remaking Mario 64 DS on it. But Jesus Christ, why couldn't they just port the original onto the DS or wait until the 3DS to make it? I know for most of this video I've been knocking both Nintendo and this game, but at the end of the day, Nintendo makes pretty good games, and this game is pretty good. Being my first exposure to Mario 64, it was a pretty good introduction to 3D gaming as a whole. Mario's always been a big part of my childhood, and this game is one of the biggest games. No matter how bad Mario games get, I'll always be there to play them. Will I love them? Probably. With all the flaws this game has, I still love it, and I still think it's a pretty good game, despite being on the DS. The controls might be bad, the camera might be terrible, but that's okay, because it's fun. 7.5 Mario caps out of 10. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Welcome to the new year. I hope this one is actually pretty good, unlike last year. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, consider subscribing, it helps me out a lot. It would be greatly appreciated due to these videos taking a lot of time and effort to make. Subscribing takes not even 5 seconds to do, and it helps me out a lot. Comment down below what you would want me to see covered next, and I might do it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. FNAF fan games are an interesting topic to talk about. They've been around almost as long as the original Five Nights at Freddy's. A lot of them are fondly remembered. Fan games that everyone knows, like Five Nights at Candy's and One Night at Flunky's. These games on YouTube get covered often. There's no shortage of videos. Just looking on YouTube, you can find all sorts of stuff on these titles. Gameplay, analysis, reviews, and more. Despite these games being just as old as the original Five Nights at Freddy's, they're still really popular. FNAF fan games will always be popular. New ones are still being made today, and entire channels are making a name for themselves on this platform by talking about FNAF fan games. But some FNAF fan games have been left into obscurity. Pretty significant ones back in the day have been forgotten today. Like the Return to Freddy's. Hell, even the first ever FNAF fan game was forgotten until recently. But I think there's a pretty obscure one now, a fan game, that was a talk of the town at one point. Mostly any YouTuber you would expect to play FNAF fan games played this. So, who remembers 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's? Either that name brought you back a lot of nostalgia, or you have no idea what I'm talking about. This was one of the big FNAF fan games when FNAF fan games got their peak popularity. But a lot of people don't really like to talk about this one or remember it, that fact. But it's weird, this was one of the most popular ones. Since its popularity, it's actually spawned 2 sequels, which I'll talk about in another video if you leave enough likes. Looking up 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's on YouTube, no one really talks about it anymore. It seems like it's been truly forgotten and cast away during the rest of the FNAF fan games trapped in the unforgiving world of Game Jolt's backpeak. Is this really warranted? Well, hard to say. The only real way to know is to jump in and find out myself. Jumping in for the first time in a while, and playing for the first time, I could see why it was forgotten. A shitty, buggy, uninspired, boring mess. But let's back up for a second. The game isn't really that long, you can beat it in a single sitting. It's kinda uneventful and boring. Now if you know anything about FNAF fan game, which you should, because why else would you be watching this video? Five Nights at Freddy's fan games, or just Five Nights at Freddy's in general, has a gameplay loop, and 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's gameplay loop Well, yeah. Now, if the original creator stumbles upon this video somehow, just notice it had a personal attack on you. This game was made almost 8 years ago, so I don't think they'll get upset by me saying it kinda sucks ass. Now, to be fair, this was only the second game they ever made. Well, I think, the second game they ever posted the Game Jolt. Now, supposedly the programming of the game is pretty decent. I don't know anything about programming or coding, but it runs well, so that should be proof enough. It's just like any other FNAF fan game. Sit in the office and survive to 6 AM. Nothing revolutionary. Back then, FNAF fan games used to have a lot more effort put into them. This game definitely has that early Five Nights at Freddy's fan game charm. FNAF fan games didn't have the reputation they do now of oversaturated trash jamming up Game Jolt. Now, looking at the gameplay, you can probably tell how easy this game is. You would be correct. There's two main enemies you have to deal with, Golden Freddy and Springtrap. The gimmick with these two is that Golden Freddy is extremely slow and Springtrap is fast. By the time Golden Freddy gets back to you, Springtrap can do his attack pattern twice. Each character has a pattern and it's pretty easy to get down. It only takes one leap to get the pattern down. Looking at the office, you can see a big mini-map in front of you, and this is how you track the animatronics, which don't appear until night 2. Except wherever this thing is. On the topic of the office, let's talk about the graphics real quick. They look like ass. Everything is basically a stock image, and this one frame of Springtrap is literally the default stock image. What is this atrocious keep commonplace FNAF poster? This game also has a really strong vignette, and it looks like a fisheye lens. Also, they didn't use Golden Freddy, they used Phantom Freddy. And oh my god, the night ending animation. Holy shit, I get motion blur just looking at it. Another weird thing about this game is every screen you have to manually press space to move on. It's not the most annoying thing, but I thought I'd mention it. Now, the interesting thing with Springtrap is when he runs by, he has a chance to stop, and if he stops and you don't have your mask on, you die. But as he's running past you, you don't actually have to put your mask on. I distinctly remember every YouTuber who would play this game saying how difficult it was. I died once, in the most stupid way, but I'll talk about that later. From night 3 and on, the game adds new enemies that don't appear on the minimap. The first one being the puppet, which I guess actually does appear on the minimap. I don't know why, but they do. When the puppet appears in your office, you have to constantly click on them, or you won't be able to use your mask. Which isn't much of a problem. You just have to keep your mouse over here and constantly click. You don't actually have to move. The second enemy you will encounter is Phantom Balloon Boy, who will block your minimap, and if you don't click on him fast enough, he will kill you, which I did not know, and that is the one time I died. These enemies aren't very annoying or hard to deal with. Unlike the third one, Phantom Mango. She has one of the worst aspects of any FNAF fan game I have ever seen. She has a pretty simple mechanic. When Phantom Mango enters your office, you will disable the camera, which doesn't sound too bad if you learn the pattern, and yes, that's a valid point. Well, except the really cool mechanic in this game is with Phantom animatronics, they can spawn as soon as you get rid of them. They can spawn right back again to the same spot. Just look at this shit. What am I supposed to do in this situation? It just keeps on going.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Also, I didn't do the 5th night because it's the same exact thing as the 4th night, just with no difference. Also, did you know there's mini-games? Yeah, there's mini-games! What is the purpose of them? I have no idea. Maybe it's lore? Now, the first mini-game you get after beating night 2, you leave the office and get killed by Springtrap almost immediately. The second one takes place after beating night 4. The second mini-game has you leaving the office again, but this time we don't die. Woohoo! Life! Oh, alright, that's a bad thing. Hey, you want to explore this place? You get to see Springtrap and Golden Freddy. Didn't you see this little hole? Like, what does this little hole do out there? Why don't you go out there and find this little prickly bitch? You may remember earlier when I mentioned this game was buggy and poorly designed. Yeah, it's most apparent in these minigames. When leaving this little area, you can actually loop the map. When using logic, or just basic game design, I don't think this was intentional, and if it was, for some reason, it's gotta be one of the worst game decisions I've ever seen. What would even be the point of it? This might be hard to believe, but there's actually multiple endings. The first ending is the worst ending, which you get by just dying. That's not really an ending, but sure. The second ending is the bad ending, which you get by beating nights 1 through 5 normally, which I guess makes sense. The next ending is the good ending, which you get by beating nights 1 through 4 normally, then clicking on Freddy's nose until Golden Freddy's plush appears on night 5. Then you have to just beat it. It's kind of a trash ending. The next ending is the better ending, real creative name, which is a bit more complex. You have to beat nights 1 and 2 normally, and then in the minigame you stay in your office until you hear noise. Then you go to the door. What does this mean? I have no idea. I'm just reading this off a description. The next ending is that you have to beat night 4 and then click on Freddy's nose on the title screen multiple times, then press S and then press on the green button on the screen. Also, I'll be leaving the video I'm reading the description of in the description, so if you want to see where the endings are, you can go see them for yourself. And then the final ending, the real ending, which is the true ending, you get by doing the good ending and then beating night 6. Yeah. 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's is a weird game that just blew up out of nowhere. It's not that much content to the game, yet really big players like Daco, Fusion Z Gamer, and East Goes Boom did videos on them. Now, this game is very nostalgic for me, especially the menu, specifically Risk Rim's video on it. But that's still not gonna keep me from trashing it. Like I did mention earlier, it's an early work from the developer, so obviously it's not gonna be the best quality. One thing that really hurts this game is the lack of RNG. Golden Freddy and Springtrap move at the same exact pattern at the same exact speed for all the nights. It's not challenging in the slightest. It's repetitive. Earlier FNAF fan games suffered from this, examples like Candies. Another thing is the phone calls are just kinda lackluster. I don't know if the developer voices them or got someone else to do it, but it's kinda mediocre. When I play FNAF fan games, or Final Fantasy games in general, I usually have a sense of dread and nervousness. It doesn't matter what's happening, when it's happening, it doesn't matter. When I play this game, I don't feel nervous at all. This game doesn't make me stress at all, for one specific reason. When you play 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's, you might notice the time goes exceptionally fast. So if you died, which you really shouldn't, you don't actually have to worry because you'll be back somewhere around in a matter of 2 minutes. I've mentioned some pretty bad stuff about this game, so why not mention some good stuff about this game? Well, there are good things about this, just minor things. I do like the mini-map idea. It's a good concept that they would actually use again for 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's 2, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. I like the pixel art in the mini-game, and, you get to punch Balloon Boy. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm trying to stretch it. It's not a bad game per se, it's just unspeakably plain. Like I stated in the beginning, it's not that interesting of a game. Like I just mentioned, this game has 2 sequels. The second one actually does the whole minimap thing pretty good. It's way better than the first one. The sequels definitely do everything better, which you might say no duh, but comparing 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's 1 to Golden Nights 2, it just looks so much better. It's a definite jump in quality. Golden Nights 2 is just a more refined version of 1 with more animatronics and overall just looks better. I haven't played it yet, but I might in a future video if you give this video a like. 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's was our first attempt to make a Final Fantasy Freddy's fan game, and with most first fan games, they tend to suck. 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's was a solid attempt to make a fan game. It all boils down with if you like harder games or easier games, if you like a lot of content or a little content, it's your preference. But me personally, I can't really see myself coming back to this game, despite it being really nostalgic. It's just admittedly not a good game. I don't think I'm being too harsh by saying that. It has that old FNAF fan game funk. The sequels definitely ironed out the gameplay. I would say don't play this unless you're very curious. Trying to pin down what specifically makes it a bad game is kinda difficult. There's a multitude of reasons why this fan game hasn't hold up the best. For one, the graphics, as I already mentioned. Everything is reused images but lower resolution. I know other fan games do a similar tactic with reused images like Fights of Warriors, which I do plan on making a video of. They just do it in a better way. It has very annoying features like the fact there's no cooldown on when phantoms can come, putting you in impossible situations. Now looking at the developers' newer games, you can definitely tell they improved it a lot. Even looking at 5 Golden Nights at Freddy's 3, you can tell a big improvement. Well, this was an interesting nostalgia trip to go back on, but I think my time here is now done. It was a nice trip coming back for one of the most nostalgic fan games. I plan on making more of these videos if this video gets positive feedback or negative feedback. I still plan on making more videos and reviews. If you want me to review a certain fan game, leave a comment down below, tell me which one it is, and I'll decide to look at the comments. Maybe. I'll make a video on whatever I feel like it, and if I don't feel like it, either way, I'll make more reviews in the future. If you like this video, stick around maybe, subscribe if you feel like it. I don't really know how to do outros. Now get out! Team Fortress 2 is one of the best games developers have ever made, or one of the best games in general. For the 5 people who don't know what TF2 is a class-based shooter with multiple classes that succeed and fail at certain jobs and tasks. And in any good shooters, you need guns. But unlike the standard shotgun or AK-47, which TF2 kinda have, they have switchable slots where you can make different loadouts, 3 different weapons, which means there's a bunch of different weapon combinations. Some weapons are good, some of them are trash, some of them are balanced, and some of them are downright busted. But some fall so flat. No one ever uses these weapons. These are not theoretically the worst weapons, these are just weapons I absolutely despise using. Because today I am counting down the top 9 worst weapons in TF2. Oh yeah, subscribe. Join me as we take a deep dive into Manco's nastiest weapon selections. The fast Boston Boy Scout does a lot for his team. Most of the time, he benefits surprisingly a lot from his secondaries. His secondaries like Mad Milk, and even Stock Pistol, is good for finishing people off. Mad Milk is good for a team when there's no medic, or if the medic's occupied with nothing else. And surprisingly, Scout takes a lot of damage. Scout himself is very powerful, so most heavies want to take you down as fast, because Scout can take heavy down fast too. As Lazy Purple said, you run fast and you die fast, but the medic or health pack's not always available when you need them desperately. So what if there's a weapon besides Mad Milk that rewards you for good aim with something that heals you every time you hit an enemy? The Pretty Boy's pocket pistol on paper sounds like a really good idea, but execution is far from it. The pocket pistol has been reworked so many times, it is now an awful blitzsaga that actually used to be good, giving you 5 HP per hit instead of the pitiful 3. And it also had a big clip too, the same as stock. Now it only has 9, which is only 3, yes, but those 3 last bullets could be the difference between you killing the enemy and that enemy killing you. It gets pretty annoying not having those 3 shots. It does fire faster than stock by 15%, but doesn't do much when you run out of ammo faster. And if that wasn't bad enough, to craft it, it takes 2 good weapons, the Winger and Mad Milk. Speaking of Mad Milk, let's talk about Pyros. Pyros are Scout's biggest enemy and biggest threat. With the Mad Milk, not so much. You can put you and your teammates out. But the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol does not allow you to do that. Shooting a pyro does not give you nearly enough health to survive another blast of fire, especially if he's WM1ing. A weapon concept already existing, but executed much more terribly. I would like to quickly mention the fact that apparently you can get health back on bonked scouts. Now that's not really improve my opinion of it, but it's a thing. And just like the ShamWow guy, you're gonna say wow, this thing's a piece of shit. Demo technically has 2 primary weapons, so getting rid of one does not affect him too much. For a secondary, you can replace it with a shield and get some pretty good mobility. The stock sticky bomb launcher is Demo's best weapon, so not surprisingly they came out with 2 more sticky bomb launchers, the Quickie bomb launcher and the Scottish resistance. The Scottish resistance being used for sticky traps like the sticky bomb launcher, but instead of having 8, it has 14. And primarily used for traps, but instead of having them all go off at once, you can choose what explosive go off, making them pretty good for control points and choke points. The Cookie Bomb Launcher, on the other hand, is not that good. You know, I really struggled on this pick for a while. I didn't want to do the cable because that would be low-hanging fruit. I mean, Demel doesn't really have any bad weapons, so I had to pick one I didn't particularly like using. And unfortunately, that was the Cookie Bomb Launcher. Do you know how stickies are so good and how powerful? The Cookie Bomb Launcher takes that concept and throws it out the window for a faster firing speed. You can detonate the cookies a lot faster than normal stickies, but doesn't really matter due to the damage penalty. It also has a clip penalty of 50%. Real quick, let's talk about crits. A crit sticky is one of the most powerful things in TF2. Devilman himself with any of his weapons with crits is a force to be reckoned with. But when you give him this, it does half the amount of damage a base sticky does. While yes, you can sticky snipe and sticky spam much easier with this weapon, it still doesn't match up to the power of the stock sticky bomb launcher. And because you can't actually use this for sticky traps, you have to exclusively sticky snipe with pitiful damage. That's impossible. The only real way to get kills is comboing. To sum up this weapon is trash. It's almost useless. Just use Disguise Resistance or stock. Medic surprisingly benefits quite a lot from his primary weapons. The Crusader's crossbow is good for burst and long-range healing, and the Bloodsucker allows you to get away from sticky situations. But this weapon, not so much. The Uber update, which is a lot of people's favorite update, added Medic's most powerful ability, the Uber. They definitely wanted to add a weapon that rewards you for getting Uber, but missed the mark so hard. The Overdose in concept is a very good weapon idea. I'm so into weapons that reward you with a speed boost like the Power Jack. I cannot play Pyro without the Pyro Jack. So when I first heard the syringe gun that rewards you for building Uber with a speed buff, I was quite happy. With every increase of 20% Uber, you get the speed buff. But the thing about it is the damage is so ass. It's just a stock syringe gun, and that speed buff doesn't do much good compared to the Crusader's crossbow or Blitzsaga. It's just like using the Solemn Vow over the Uber sword. It just makes no sense unless you're memeing. And I know you're gonna comment, oh Dominic, it's fun. Yeah, I understand everyone else plays different from me. Personally, I like playing the objective and annihilating the other team into nothing but a small blue stain. But really quick, let's go over the speed boosts again, shall we? Speak of speed boosts, on a certain characters like Soldier or Heavy, it's very good. They're the two slowest, and so obviously, a speed boost would benefit them. Soldier has a disciplined action, and he can also rocket jump, and Heavy has the Gru. But you know what doesn't make sense? Giving a speed boost to the second fastest class. Oh, which so happens to be Medic. Giving Medic a speed boost makes some sense, but not too much. Well, yes, it is used to get out of sticky situations, but the Blitzsaga is so much better at that. Worst of all, if you're a particularly skilled medic, you can surf explosive, making the primary feature, the speed boost, so irrelevant. Originally, the Cleaner's Combine was Sniper's pick, and then I thought about it. The Cleaner's Combine isn't all that bad if you pair with the Bushwhacker, so I sat on this for a while. And I thought of the perfect weapon. A weapon so hated, so despised, Sniper means fear the name. The Sydney Sleeper. That's right, the Piss Rifle takes the number 6 spot. This weapon isn't bad, I added it to the list because it's so unfun. And I think it's a stupid weapon overall. All you can do with it is body shot, you can't even do a simple headshot. Sniper can do something called a quick shot, which can be used to kill light classes instantly, doing a swift 150 damage. The Sydney Sleeper on the other hand can't do that. Most sniper rifles you have to charge it. A full body shot charge does, guess what? 150. Yeah, the same as a quick scope. The weapon can also extinguish teammates, and yes, the Sydney Sleeper has a 25% faster charge rate. It takes 2.1 seconds compared to the stock sniper rifle's 3.3 second charge. So yes, it is faster to do max damage compared to the stock, but compared to stock, it doesn't do really good with quick scopes. Real quick, let me tell you about how fast you can do a quick scope. You can attack every 1.5 seconds. You also have a zoom-in headshot delay of 0.2 seconds. So with my rough calculations, which means me just guessing, I would say you have 0.2 before you can zoom in and headshot someone. Where was I going with this? But the point still stands. You can quick scope someone before you can fully body shot someone. So it would take 2 quick scopes to put a heavy down, but 2 fully charged body shots, meaning to kill a heavy faster, you would just be stock. You can also coat your enemies in Girardi, which isn't that good as it sounds. At the end of the day, everyone hates this weapon and it deserves its spot on the list. And if you use this weapon, you are actually Satan. Spy doesn't really benefit a lot from his knives. It really doesn't matter what knife you pick. Of course, certain knives are better than certain situations. The Spy Skull is good when a pyro is harassing you. The Eurotunnel Word is good when a bunch of stupid players on the team, which this comes up more often than you think. The Kunai is better when you want to be more aggressive, and if you want to be a consistent backstabber with no real gimmicks, the Stock Knife is pretty good. If you're paying attention, you probably noticed one knife is missing. That's right, the Big Earner. The Big Earner is a particularly interesting entry. Originally, the Eurotunnel Reward was gonna be in the spot. But over time, when I was clocking footage for it, it kinda grew on me. And then there was only one knife I didn't really like using. The first knife I ever unlocked in 2020 when I first started playing. The Big Earner takes the number 5 spot. First, let's look at the stats. 30% cloak on kill, gain speed boost on kill, which at first sounds pretty good. But there's a downside. Minus 25 max health on wearer. Now 25 health might not seem like a lot, but it puts Spy at 100 health. That means you basically get one-shotted by almost every gun in the game. An upside is that you get a little bit more speed and cloak. But now that's not a good trade-off. Those who are wondering, oh, why am I not putting the Kunai here? Because it has even more punishing health penalty. But the thing with the Kunai is on backstab, you gain a giant chunk of health. More than Spy's maximum health. So you can go on giant chain stabs, trick stabs, and all of that, and be basically invincible. But if you try to do something like this with the Big Earner, it might work. You might get a few stabs. But God forbid a scout or a soldier or any class sees you at all during a little frenzy, get your dead ring already, cause you're gonna need it. Pyro has very average secondaries. The only really good ones is the flare gun and scorch shot. Pyro's secondaries aren't very useful compared to his primaries, which he does benefit a lot from. Compared to his secondaries, he doesn't benefit from them too much. They're more damage dealers and to finish enemies off from far away. Pyro players have a lot to do for their team. There's spy checking, air blast burning players, reflect rockets, break sappers, protect the medic, denied uber pushes, push people off carts and control points. So what happens if you give him another support weapon? Well, you get the gas passer. This weapon is the definition of missed potential, like most weapons on this list. It has a good concept. Once thrown at an enemy, it can ignite them upon any damage. Self-damage, fall damage, any damage. It can even ignite enemy pyros. Problem is, it takes 60 seconds to refill, and respawn lockers don't affect it. On the bright side, the more damage you do, the faster it fills. But by the time you filled it up, you could have killed so many more enemies with the shotgun, scorch shot, flare gun, or hell, even the man melter could have killed them. Because it takes 750 damage to fully charge! When it's thrown, it has 5 seconds to coat people and 5 seconds to stay on them. It's just terrible compared to the Mad Milk. The Mad Milk, because it gives health back. Even teammates get health back. Girardi is good because it deals mini crits to anyone covered in it. Also, anyone covered in Mad Milk or Girardi is considered wet, which means you can pyro shock them. Go to the gas passer, and they're not considered wet, so you can extinguish teammates with it. Yeah, which makes absolutely no sense. This thing is just a poor man's Mad Milk and Girardi, except without any of the benefits. Okay, I'll keep this brief, because I already made a whole video about it. Originally, I was going to make a video about all these weapons on the list, until I realized that's stupid because I can barely talk about any of these weapons for longer than a minute. So talking about it for a full 10-minute video would be an awful idea. Anyway, the Bison is bad, that's why it's on the list obviously. The current stats are awful. First, it has a faster firing speed, which with most weapons sounds good, but it's not that useful. It has a 33% clip penalty, the firing speed is ass, slower projectile, and oh yeah, the damage penalty. The hitboxes are all out of whack. The Bison is so inconsistent, it's just awful to use. Every other soldier secondary is so much better than this. You have to basically predict where the enemy is going instead of shooting them head on. I don't need to say anything else because I have a full video on it. So, actually, don't go watching it because it's actually a pretty bad video. Oh god, the Bison 2.0. Yes, the Thompson 6000 takes the number 2 spot. I don't know where to start with this weapon. There's just so much terrible shit with it. I guess that's the stats. The stats read as follow. Does not require ammo, cannot be reflected, loses 10% Uber on hit loses 10% cloak, 20% less damage on buildings. The worst damage on buildings doesn't really need to be there because engineer doesn't really go up to other buildings that other engineers build. So I don't see the point of having it on there. Not requiring ammo, just like the Bison, is pretty irrelevant, and again, like the Bison, cannot be reflected by pyros, which most free-to-plays don't know that. So, let's start with unhit enemy loses 10% of Uber. Now that might sound good, a few hits to a medic with this thing can drain Uber and basically save you the game. That's if you can aim. If aiming on this thing wasn't abysmal enough, the projectiles are awful. Now, I don't have the best aim, and I have a lot of friends who have pretty good aim, and I've seen them use it. The accuracy on this weapon is absolute shit. This weapon is honestly worse than the Bison by 10-fold. The Bison can at least penetrate through enemies. The Bison has a larger hitbox compared to the Thompson. Back to the medic thing. Hitting an enemy medic is hard. He's the second fastest moving class with an ass slow firing rate and projectile speed. It's damn near impossible to hit a move medic unless you're Uncle Dane. Also, good luck getting near the enemy medic. Ain't no president on the enemy team's gonna let a small Texan boy get next to the German leader. Unless the team's absolutely useless, which 9 times out of 10 on casual servers is the case. The 20% cloak thing, yeah, this thing is almost completely useless. When dealing with spies, the first thing you should always do is worrying about to get the sapper off whatever building it placed it on. The sentry gun and the rest of your buildings. Not worrying about his cloak time. By the time you get the sapper off, the spy is probably long gone. Or, if you're especially bad, he probably already killed you. And that 20% and 10% less cloak and Uber isn't a big deal. Especially due to spies being able to pick up an ammo box to fill their cloak meter. And I guess the Uber reduction makes a little sense. Medic's Uber is one of the biggest counters to Engineer. But Engineer has a lot more better primary weapons like Stark or the Widowmaker. So just don't use this thing, dude. I struggled with this one for a very long time. But one mercenary had to take the number 1 spot. Throughout the years, Heavy has been neglected despite being the face of TF2. The devs don't really pay much attention to Heavy. He has the lowest amount of good weapons compared to every other class. The only good unlocks he has is Natasha, Tomislav, Sandwich, and Gru. Anything else is really unusable with Heavy, besides the Brass Beast, which sometimes has its moments. Just because a weapon is bad doesn't mean it's not fun to play with. Take the Force of Nature, for example. This poor Russian boy hasn't been getting any acknowledgement from the devs. He doesn't have enough good weapons. A bunch of his weapons can be put in the bad category, but they're kinda usable. Besides this piece of shit. The Eviction Notice is a horrible weapon. It's the worst in the game. Hence, why it's number 1. I feel like when you make a weapon in a game, you should show how fun it is to use. But if you make a weapon that unfun, you failed at making a good weapon. Everything about the Eviction Notice is just plain bad. What are the stats real quick? 40% firing speed. Okay, that's pretty good on Heavy. On hit, gains a speed boost. Okay, nice. 15% move speed on Wearer. Great. 60% damage penalty. I mean, it's a melee weapon. Maximum health drain when item is active. So the Eviction Notice is just a horrible version of the Gru. Combining that 60% penalty with maximum health drain, it's not a good mix. It's just not enough good upsides to justify using this weapon. If you want to be fast or heavy, the GRU exists. The same situation with the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol. The GRU was added a year before, so there was no point of even adding this weapon. It's just a slot filler. I just don't understand why someone would ever use this weapon. In conclusion, TF2 has a lot of good weapons, but they also have really bad ones. Join me next time and I will be doing the top 9 best weapons in TF2. But until then, subscribe, get out. Before I begin, I just wanted to state, when I first started making this video, I thought I was just going to fix a few things, clear some things up, and fix what I got wrong. But as I delved deeper, I found a whole rabbit hole of information about the video now, and some potential lost media, enough for its own video. So that's what this video is going to be. This video is a year in the making. Enjoy. About a year ago, I made a video about a little known product by Jack Pacific and Hasbro from 2003 and discontinued in 2007, called The Video Now. And it's still the video I'm most proud of. But I've been wanting to make a part 2 for the longest time, but didn't have enough content to talk about, until I discovered something on the back of the packaging. A website. And what I found in this website. A website dating all the way back to 2003. But trying to enter the website now, you'll be taken to the Hasbro website instead. But using the Wayback Machine, you can actually see what it used to look like. And it looked like this. Before anyone gets excited, the website is messed up a lot because of Flash. When Flash went debunked back in 2020, a lot of websites got messed up. Real messed up. And because of it, a whole new wave of lost media formed. But before we get into all this, let me clear up some misconceptions and fix what I got last time. If you would like to skip this, you can use the chapter system to get to the website. First, do you remember when I said the Video Now was kinda like the Game Boy? Well, I would like to retract that statement. It is most definitely like the Game Boy. It even has its own damn light. This just can't be a coincidence. I forgot to talk about the light because it wasn't very popular and I had to do some digging through the website. The second thing I got wrong was the price. Originally I said no one really knew what the price was, so I estimated around $70, which was what people were guessing around the time. But we were close. The website, again, you could see it was actually $60, so we were somewhat right. Lastly, when I first made the video, I thought there was only 3 versions of the Video Now. Well, guess what? I was wrong. There's actually 5. That being the original, which is the one I have, the Video Now Color, the Video Now XP, the Video Now Junior, and the Video Now Color FX. What's the difference between the original Color and the FX? Not even God knows at this point. The Video Now Junior is, well, yeah. Fisher Price called, they want the design back. The Junior was supposed to be a smaller, normal Video Now, which, I mean, look at the size of this thing. How much smaller are you gonna get until this thing becomes a damn hip clip? It was also supposed to be for kids, which, I mean, was the Video Now not for kids? Maybe it was marketed more towards teens. And the Color FX had a bit of an identity crisis. Oh look, another Game Boy comparison. The Color FX has a transparent shell, just like the Game Boy. Man, I can't stress this enough. This absolutely cannot be a coincidence in any way. By the way, something I didn't talk about in the last video was how useless this thing is nowadays. The video quality is just plain old dog shite. Like, even for its time, it was just real bad. Also, from what many say online, this thing was plagued with problems. Slow loading times, disks not reading, the whole 10 yards. Now, the website itself, like I mentioned earlier, is very, very broken, and obviously I can't go over every point of the website, because there's over 300, and most of them save. So let's start with the first screenshot. This is the full iteration of the site. Now, this site is a 2003 time capsule. You have a bunch of things to click on, and clicking on Browse Products, Jesus Christ, there's more stuff. Just like the Video Now Lite, there's also a Video Now headphones and Video Now carrying cases. The plot thickens. Each product has its own description. I'll put them all up on screen, but other than that, there's not much else here in the Browse Products tab. So let's go to the next one. which is the About page. I'll read it now.
The Video Now is the ultimate portable personal video player just for kids. It's instant on-the-go entertainment with no wires or hookups, and nothing to download or install. Just pop in a disc and enjoy 30 minutes of your favorite shows in black and white, like American Idol, SpongeBob SquarePants, Video Appearance incoming soon, A Day in the Life with Hilary Duff. Video Now Personal Player comes complete with a special sample Video Now personal video disc featuring over half a dozen examples from today's most popular programs. Each circular 85mm. Video Now disc contains up to 30 minutes of uninterrupted content. The Video Now disc features a special proprietary format and will not fit into any other media players. The Video Now player is 4 inches by 6 inches with a black and white LCD screen that features 16 levels of grayscale. Contains 80 by 80 pixels and measures 1.7 by 1.3 inches, resulting in quality picture.
You know they are proud of that 1.7 by 1.3 inch screen. This was just an About page. Next! Now, the next tab is honestly pretty cool. It's a collection page where you have a bunch of different shows that you can select through. And the cool part is on the side right here. It has a checklist. You can click whether or not you have a DVD or if you want that DVD. So someone like a parent can go through it and see which ones you have and which ones you want for maybe like Christmas or something. And I find that really cool. If I was younger and I had a Video Now, I would have think that was pretty cool too. It's an easy way to keep track of what DVDs you want and which ones you have. Now, I'm going to lump these next 3 tabs together because I really don't have much content on them and we're only on version 1 of the site. The frequently asked question tab, well, is self-explanatory. Pause if you want to read them. Next tab is what has happened, which has never changed and probably never will because they discontinued it. And the last tab of this version is where to buy, which is a where to buy section. Wow! For the first version of the site, it succeeds at what it's aiming to do. The Video Now was new at the time, so not a lot of marketing was put out for it. This is only version 1. As more Video Nows came out, the website was updated, but for the most part it stayed the same. Until July 24th, 2004. This is what the second version of the website looks like, and is the Video Now color. There's quite a bit of information to talk about, so let's just get into it. Now, the first tab is a Video Now point thing, I think. I say that because clicking on it brings you here. I don't know what this would have done, but I guess every early Johnson product must have points. Not much with this tab. But we have more. Well, not much more. Actually, can anyone guess why? That's right, you guys are a bunch of smart little cookies. It's that son of a bitch Flash. And because of Flash, we have one more tab. Yeah, thanks Adobe. The last tab is the news section. Again, it's on screen if you want to read it. Now we arrive at the final iteration. This is the Video Now XP, the Game Boy SP of the Video Nows. And yes, this is what modern portable DVD players look like today. And yes, you'd be right. So you might think the Video Now XP influenced the design of modern portable DVD players. Well, no. In fact, the Video Now wasn't even the first portable DVD player. That title goes to the DVD i10 made by Panasonic in 1998. Man, I was ready to give the Video Now a point. Screw it. I guess let's look at the tabs. The first tab is Video Now points, but this time they actually work. So what are these points used for? Exclusive DVDs. So close. Next tab is this special distance thingy. Oh, it doesn't work. How about we cross out every tab that doesn't work? Oh, only 2? Okay. Check It Out tab is where you go to buy the Video Now and disc. And for some reason, they have 2 Check It Out tabs. And Jesus Christ, there's over 100 to collect! And last but not least, we have some small tabs up above. I'm gonna go through these in a lightning round. The first tab we have is a place to buy and see all the players. Then the next tab is just a PVD gaming tab. I don't really know what that is, but I guess XP stands for extra play or whatever. Now, the points is the same tab. Have you been paying attention? The fun stuff tab is just a bunch of polls and shit, but pressing this button breaks the website. Fun, right? And the where to buy tab is the same as this tab. Well, wait a dilly dong ding dong doom mango rango tango minutes. The more astute viewer might have noticed I've never clicked on this play demo tab on any of the sites. And, well, that's because of Flash again. And do you remember when I said there was some potential lost media? This is what I was referring to. I don't know if these were videos, commercial, little animations, or something else, but I'm convinced this is some potential lost media. And that was it. The website stayed unchanged in 2013 when Hasbro pulled the plug and turned the Video Now website into the Hasbro website. So, the Hasbro website is built on a graveyard. No wonder this thing keeps haunting me. Well, children, that was the story of the Video Now. We've had our ups and downs, our plot twist, and our stupid accessories. But throughout, we learned how stupid early 2000 tech really was. And that's all that matters. Okay, I'm bored with this thing. What else is there for me to make a video about? Oh, perfect. Just like Mario enemies, Mario power-ups can be very hit or miss. They are very important to a game's success. If you don't add enough new power-ups, or you add a bunch of awful ones, you're not going to have a successful game. And that's what happened to New Super Mario Bros. Some power-ups are just so bad they tend to annoy you more than actually help you. And some can actually kill you, or get you killed. Some of them have bad controls, some of them are completely useless, and some make the game harder. Nintendo is pretty good at making power-ups, and there are rare screw-ups by them. That's why today I'll be counting down the top 7 worst Mario power-ups. Yeah, I hate to do it, but hit the bell to get notified when I upload, and subscribe. It helps out a lot, and it's free, and it only takes not even 5 seconds. Ooh. Yeah, onto the countdown. Okay, you all knew the P-Balloon was going to be on the list, so let's just get it out of the way. The P-Balloon first made its appearance back in 1990 alongside the release of Super Mario World, and can only be found in 4 levels. Donut Secret 1, Donut Secret 2, Frost Evolution 1, and the creatively named Tubular. You know Nintendo thought this power-up was stupid too, so the power-up actually turns Mario into a balloon. Then you can slowly float across the level, but it's not very useless as you can imagine. Oh, but it gets worse. When you get hit, you lose the power-up, obviously, but let's rewind to Tubular. This whole level is mostly why the P-Balloon is on the list. This level is such a damn headache. There's almost no land to jump on, so getting hit, pop, void. I also didn't mention how many enemies there are. This power-up has been in a lot of Mario media. It was in the Super Mario World TV show, the Mario manga, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie that came out this year. So I guess Nintendo unfortunately didn't forget about the P-Balloon. Oh yeah, it was also in Super Mario Maker 2, but it was way better there. But it's technically not the same thing, so moving on. And something about fetishes or whatever. If you've watched my top 10 best Mario list, you should know my thoughts on Super Mario Maker, but if you haven't, I'll give you a quick rundown. I think Mario Maker is a fine game. Definitely not as much as I used to when I made the list, but it was a cool idea that you get to make your own Mario levels. It even got a sequel later on, with even more possibilities. But I'm not talking about Mario Maker 2 today. Let's go back to the first one. Now, Mario Maker had most of the power-ups you would think they had. The Fire Flower, Super Mushroom, oh, and the Tanuki Mushroom, and the Starman. But did you know there's actually a secret power-up? Yeah. You know, the Weird Mushroom has always been, well, a weird thing to me. Obviously, it's in its name. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, why was it even added in the first place? It just turns you into this weird-ass looking Waluigi type thing. I don't even know how to explain it. It's not even that good of a power-up, hence why it's on the list. All it really does is make you jump a little bit higher, and again, Nintendo thought it was so useless they didn't even add it in any other games, nor have they referenced it outside of Mario Maker 1. This thing is almost creepypasta-like. It just looks so nasty. Super Mario Land on the Game Boy was definitely a Mario game. Sorta. I mean, Super Mario Land is a traditional Mario adventure, just smaller. Way, way smaller. But it still has power-ups. Yeah, it's still there. But it doesn't have the traditional power-up. Yes, it might have the Super Mushroom and the Star, but not the Fire Flower. So what replaces the Fire Flower? Well, introducing the Super Ball, and it functions practically the same, except one big difference. Have you ever played with a bouncy ball? Yeah, he could probably tell where this is going. This thing has the darndest arc I've ever seen in a Mario game. Unless you're close to an enemy, good luck hitting it. You could also click coins with it, which is pretty cool, I guess, but it's so difficult to hit an enemy unless you're standing point blank. It is most definitely not a practical power-up, and correct me if I'm wrong, it would have been less difficult to add a simple fire flower that would shoot in one direction than to add the Super Ball that shoots in all directions. And once again, I must add, it never appeared in any other game besides Super Mario Maker 2. This power-up has absolutely no practical use. It would have been much easier to add the fire flower instead. Ugh, New Super Mario Bros. Now, New Super Mario Bros. Probably has the most power-ups throughout its 4 games. Problem is, most of the power-ups kinda suck ass. Like, a lot of them. Especially all the power-ups that appear after dying a certain amount of times with the golden Tanuki leaf. And then there are power-ups that just suck, like this piece of shit. What is the purpose of giving Mario small abilities? What is the purpose of making Mario small in general? You can't even kill enemies unless you ground pound on them. You can't even kill a simple damn Goomba. And because you're so tiny, obviously you die in one hit. Well, on the plus side, you can jump slightly higher. That's it. Which is even weird about this power-up is that it keeps appearing in modern Mario games. Like, no one wants this power-up, yet Nintendo keeps insisting that we do. Super Mario 3D World has my favorite lineup of power-ups. Of course, you have the Double Cherry, the Cat Suit, and Boomerang Flower. But you also have power-up type things, which was introduced. It's these type of head power-ups, I would call them, where you collect them and they replace your head. Wearables, yeah, we'll just call them wearables. And these kinda suck. First, we have the cannon box, which is just a bullet bit on top of your head, except it doesn't home on people. We have the light box, which is a light box, yes, very creative, and it can kill boos. That's its only purpose. But that's not the entry on the list. That goes to the Goomba mask. What is the point of a power-up? Well, it's supposed to help you. How does a Goomba head help you? The only thing it does is make enemies not attack you, especially Goombas. But a Goomba is the weakest enemy in any video game. So just why did Nintendo think adding a power-up that makes you just as useless as a Goomba? And by the way, if you bump into enemies, you still lose the power-up. So there's literally absolutely no point of wasting your time collecting this power-up when you can kill almost any enemy with any other power-up. Or, you know, by jumping on them. Oh look, a terrible power-up from a terrible Mario game. It was absolutely no denying that this power-up was going to be on the list, and of course I'm talking about the Spring Mushroom. Where do I start with this thing? First of all, the most obvious, you have almost absolutely no control of any of your movements. Moving through levels is an absolute slog, and the first level it's in is one of the worst levels in the game, especially because you have to move through these platforms that keep pulling you back. And to even use this power-up, all you have to do is bounce to the right time, or you'll be thrown to the endless void. Mixing that with Galaxy's terrible camera and terrible controls already, it's just a headache and a half to get through this. Especially the boss fight, it just sucks. It's just awful. Why would Nintendo even add something like this? Okay, let's get this out of the way. I think Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels is pretty good. You know me, I like hard games. Now with that being said, that I mentioned Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels, you should all know what number 1 is. The Poison Mushroom. The Poison Mushroom isn't a power up as much as it's a power down. What is the purpose of even adding something like this? It was just a sick joke by Nintendo, I guess. This power-up serves no purpose, and I'm absolutely not sure that anyone on Earth is expecting anything else but the Poison Mushroom to be number 1. And honestly, I don't think I need to say much more about it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Why is it the only damn power-up in any Mario game that would hurt you, and can even kill you? And if someone puts anything else at number 1, I'm sorry, but they're just plain stupid. And that was the end of the list. Yeah, it was kind of a short video, as the enemy one was too. But if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot more than you can actually think. Or that. And it's totally free. Like, people like free stuff, right? Okay. Now get out. Listening to kids games is an interesting topic. For a while back in the early 2000s, you could take almost any IP and add it to a video game, and boom, you have a game. Ghostbusters? Why not? Avengers Time? Hell yeah. The Backyarders? Wouldn't be complete without them. Bobby? Yeah, throw it onto the pile. It was inescapable. I find listening to some kids games kind of strange. I mean, it kind of makes sense. If you have a popular IP, why not make a game about it? That mindset plagues a lot of licensed kids games, and I get coming up with original ideas is kind of hard, especially if you're creating a whole story. Christmas special! Most licensed kids games aren't very good. Most of them are just turned out to make a quick buck. If you've ever played any licensed kids game before, you know how bad the quality are. Sometimes a few exceptions, like Battle for Bikini Bottom or Rise of the Unwinder, which are both made by Heavy Iron Studios, which arguably is the best developer when it comes to licensed kids games. Jesus Christ, take a shot every time I say licensed kids games. Licensed kids games are very hit or miss, and being a little shit, I grew up playing most of them, so I have extensive knowledge on the bad, the good, and the ugly. And before I continue, I will not be considering plug and plays. It will probably have their own videos, because it's just way too much. A lot of popular shows and movies got their own games. The weird thing about those games are, some of them good, some of them bad. Like I mentioned before, Battle for Bikini Bottom was really good, but something like Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, if you remember, was in my SpongeBob Iceberg video, I said basically bankrupt their company, and that happens a lot more than you would think. But I digress. I want to talk about some games from my past, and some I've recently finished, and some I spent hundreds of hours in. Anyways, I have 3 games I want to talk about. This includes SpongeBob SquarePants, Plankton's Robotic Revenge, Phoenix Forever Across the Second Dimension, and The Simpsons video game. By the way, this is a 4,000 word script, so if you could, like the video and subscribe, that'd be really appreciated. Oh yeah, by the way, these are all these games are on the Wii, so it might be a little shit. Without further ado, let's get on to the video. What is there to really say about SpongeBob SquarePants that hasn't already been said 1,000 times? Nothing really. SpongeBob games vary in quality, most of them are kind of shite, especially the ones on the handheld. Yeah, handheld SpongeBob games. Unfortunately, we have not escaped the shite games today, because we'll be taking a look at SpongeBob SquarePants, Plankton's Robotic Revenge. I have a long personal history with this game. At one point it was even my favorite game of all time, but revisiting it, I'm ashamed that I even played this game in the first place, or considered it one of my favorite games. It's downright abysmal. It's boring, repetitive, and it has maybe one or two saving graces. I'll get to that at the end, because it's going to take the shortest amount of time to do. But what went wrong? Well, let's get into it. But before we can do that, let me give a little context back to this game's creation. Back in 2013, there was a little bit of a trend going on with these multiplayer kid shooter games type stuff. You got Ratchet and Clank, All for One, Disney Universe, and Skylanders, which got multiple games and tons of toys. The game was released back on multiple consoles. The one I use is the Wii, and there's also a Wii U port for some reason. I will give the Wii U version more points because, well, you can play as 5 characters because of the gamepad. Now, I guess let's get into the game itself. The main menu is strangely a static image, and was just music behind it. And of course, what else music to put but the SpongeBob SquarePants theme. It's a simple game. You choose a character, you go through a few levels, beat the boss, and continue. It's basic, it's bare bones. And like most SpongeBob games, it's stupidly simplistic. It's a beat-em-up shooter, which means you get guns. Unfortunately, all these guns are completely useless because of one of them, the tartar sauce shooter. But I'll get into that later. For now, let's get into the plot, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just like a normal SpongeBob episode. Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty's secret formula, but this time he has giant robots powered by AA batteries, which is kind of similar to the episode Frankendoodle, where the giant pencil falls to Bikini Bottom, but this time it's batteries. Plankton takes the safe containing the secret formula and goes off to do whatever he does. Plankton's Robotic Revenge. This is where the problems start to arise with the gameplay. The gameplay is slow and sluggish. The main problem in this is just how slow the characters move, and obviously that's not the only reason why it's terrible. Platforming is slow motion, platforming's move just slow in general. Altogether, it just adds a layer of how bad the gameplay actually is. Now let's talk about the enemies. The enemies are kind of boring. You got your basic Goomba-like enemy, there's these sentry gun-looking asses, these Beyblades, and what the hell is this supposed to be? If it was obvious enough, they're all modeled after Plankton, and all throughout the gameplay, all the enemies get upgraded. And what I mean by that is only on the last level they get upgraded. Especially for this jackass Goomba boy. It's absolutely abysmal. Not abysmal as not as bad. I mean, it's abysmal as annoying as hell. Jesus Christ, there's so many of them. It's just an absolute horde all the time. Speaking of enemies, that's all you really do in this game, is kill enemies. It's repetitive and predictable. You see this room right here? In all these rooms, you can guarantee you're gonna have to fight a horde of enemies. And what was I talking about with the tartar sauce gun? Yeah, this thing is stupidly overpowered. It kills everything. Everything! Even bosses. Yeah, the bosses. They're, well, kind of meh, and just like the rest of the game, not particularly hard. The only time I ever died is missing a jump because of how delayed the jump button is, or my eyes blurred because of how bored I was. The homing feature on the guns are absolutely dumb. It never homes on something correctly, and holds on something you've already killed. So that also makes it terrible. Also, the scenery never changes besides Bikini Bottom, which is the last level. Everything looks the exact same. Now, what was I talking about when I said it had 2 saving graces? Well, let's get into that. The first thing is the music, because it's SpongeBob music. SpongeBob music always has that bounce to it. It's quite unmatched, especially the boss music. I can't play it here, but you should definitely go out your way to find it. You will not be disappointed. Speaking of, the final boss against Plankton is absolutely amazing, despite it only being the first 3 bosses combined. It's still really fun, especially when it's Phase 2. Yeah, Phase 2. When I first got to this part when I was little, I was like, oh my god, it's amazing. What am I talking about? When I was little, this used to be a Dark Souls boss to me. But that was SpongeBob SquarePants Plankton's Robotic Revenge. It was definitely shitty, but unlike most games, my nostalgia will not blind me. No amount of nostalgia could blind me to seeing how abysmal this game really is. Unlike the next game.
Mom! Phineas and Ferb are making a title sequence!
In the past, I've been known to let my nostalgia blind me, but this video game right here, is the GOAT. Not really, but it's still a pretty good video game. Phineas Ferb as a series is fun, remembered by most as a really good show. The animation is great, the plot is great, the voice acting especially is really good. Every actor nails their role, down to a T. There's a lot I can say about Phineas and Ferb, but this is the channel for it. To keep a long story short, I have a history of Phineas and Ferb, especially the movie. Phineas and Ferb, The Cross the Second Dimension is undoubtedly the best piece of Phineas and Ferb media. What do you do when you make something successful? Make a video game. Duh. And that's where we are today with Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension, the video game. Unlike Robotic Revenge, which plays similar to this game, is actually good. And it's not nostalgia talking, it's actually a pretty good video game. It falls under the same category as Plankton Robotic Revenge, multiplayer shooter for kids, where you fight a bunch of horde of enemies. But the thing is, the difference between Across the Second Dimension and Plankton's Robotic Revenge, Across the Second Dimension, it actually feels like it's from the show. Robotic Revenge, it just feels like a generic shooter. It doesn't have that SpongeBob flair. Well, yes, it might look like a SpongeBob game, but it doesn't. Unless you really know SpongeBob's world. It doesn't feel like it. Yes, the characters act like the actual characters from the show, but you could add almost any character and the game would be the exact same. It absolutely feels no difference. The environments don't feel any different. They don't feel like SpongeBob. Well, this is rock bottom. It just looks like a generic, dark, sandy area, which Battle for Bikini Bottom does way better years prior. Within Second Dimension, it feels like you're traveling through Phineas and Ferb's world. The way the game works is you have 6 different worlds you can explore. In each world, or dimension, it actually feels like something from the show. Take the Balloon World for example. It fits perfectly with honestly one of the best characters, Balloony, which surprise surprise appears. While I'm talking about Balloon World, I would also like to mention how well the level design is. With Robotic Revenge, there's no real distinct level, where it all blends together. It just looks all the same. In Across the Second Dimension, each dimension has different levels, but in each level is a distinct design. My favorite dimension, the old time dimension, despite it only having 2 levels, both of them are distinct from each other. The first one has you on a ship, and you have to fix these fruit containers and put them back in the right spots. And the second one, you have to do a bunch of tasks like go through this maze and feed cows. This whole game has the charm of Phineas and Ferb. Oh, and while I'm at it, the guns are actually balanced, unlike, you know. And if you're wondering why I'm comparing these together so much, it's because One, I played these games as much as each other all the time when I was younger, and two, they both came out around the same time. You know what's even a bigger slap in the face to Robotic Revenge? Across the Second Dimension came out 2 years prior. Yeah, sorry about that little rant. Back to the guns. The Toddler shooter is way too overpowered, but in Across the Second Dimension, all the guns are balanced. There's reason to use all the guns, besides just this one. The baseball launcher is good for long range, the soda spray is good for multiple enemies, the electric gun is good for certain enemies. Another thing I really like about this game is how very good the level design looks, and each dimension feels different. No two dimension feels the same, which is surprising because it's very rare in licensed kids games for this to happen. I also have to mention the voice acting. I always thought Phineas and Ferb's voice acting was phenomenal, especially shoutouts to Dan Povenmire. It's always a pleasure hearing him. Dr. Doomfrost is one of my favorite characters of all time, and Dan's performance makes it even better. And of course, the other actors do. It's always a pleasure to hear them too. The plot is basically the same as the movie, but it does take a few creative liberties. Most dimensions don't appear in the movie, but the writing still feels like it's from the movie, so it doesn't really matter too much. Now, the only real problem I have is, not surprisingly, the boss fights. They're not bad, just a little stale. Robotic Revenge had more fun bosses, but Across the Second Dimension had more variety. The non-bot fight stands out. Might as well add this now, but the characters work surprisingly well when translated to 3D. Unlike another game, but I'll talk about that later. But the last two bosses are, in fact, unique. I would say they are fun, but the second one takes so long, it goes on for 15 minutes. And if you think that's an exaggeration, no, it goes on for so long, and to be honest, it's not really that engaging. It can keep you on your toes, because at the end it does get a little bit hectic, but it's nothing compared to the final boss. The final boss is, no surprise, Second Dimension Doof. And again, it's very familiar looking. It's the standard boss fight. You get all the characters, you take down the boss. It's not really that interesting of a fight. The bosses don't take away from how good this game is. While it's not groundbreaking or anything, nor is it as good as the standard AAA game, it's still a fairly decent game, and I would recommend it play it. Despite me not liking most of the games I grew up playing, this one still holds surprisingly well. And if you have a copy, good, but if you don't, you should definitely go out of your way to get one. It only takes a few hours to get through, but if you're a fan of Phineas and Ferb, it's definitely a game for you. I don't have much praise for the next game we'll be talking though. In recent times, I kind of learned to have nostalgia not blind me. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning of the video or not, but all these games are from my past. I have a bit of history with all of them, but in some cases, I let nostalgia slide. For this one, no way. I am a big fan of The Simpsons, as most people are, with Season 4 being my favorite. I think it has the best lineup of episodes. But I'm also a big fan of the movie. While this isn't the Simpsons movie game, it was released beside the movie as a marketing ploy. And if you couldn't deduct what game I'll be talking about today, I'll just say it's not Hit and Run. The Simpsons game in concept is a very good idea, but in execution, not so much. There was a previous successful other Simpsons game, like the previously mentioned Hit and Run, which is honestly pretty fun, and a crazy taxi ripoff in the form of Road Rage. But those are decent games. This game, on the other hand, is far from it. I generally don't think I've played a more broken game besides Jedi Academy. This game pisses me off to no end. Originally, the title of the video was going to be called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of TV licensed kids games, but changed it due to a couple reasons. The biggest reason being that this was supposed to be the ugly. It's not ugly, it's complete shite. When I was starting writing this part for the script, I was going to make a pretty positive part, but then I replayed the game and realized it's nowhere near a good game. Before I start tearing into it, let's talk about how good this game is. Because trust me, it's gonna be real short. The Simpsons has one of the most iconic art styles, and thankfully there's some fully animated cutscenes. Like the Second Dimension, it feels like The Simpsons world. The humor and writing are the same as the show. There's also a lot of references, and as a fan of The Simpsons, I appreciate them. And the jokes are pretty funny too. This one's my favorite.
Hey, what's with the fruity getup? If you're planning on coming home like that, don't bother.
Okay, did you get all that? Good, because the section just started, and it's all downhill from here. When the first thing I've noticed, I don't know if it's the Wii version or not, if you look at the character's eyes, you can kind of see they don't really look right. If you look at the iron art too, you can see it. They're brown and not black. Don't take that out of context. It's a minor thing, but it's still a little distracting. This game also features the Virtual Boy, which means automatic points deducted. In any of these games, I don't think I mentioned collectibles. Robotic Revenge didn't have any, Second Dimension had a few. The Simpsons game by far has the most of them, and they're in some pretty shitty areas. Most of the time, they're just out in the open, or in your path. It's just like the mini-kits in LEGO Star Wars. But hey, that game actually has competent level design, unlike this game. Every single level feels random. Take the Dolphin level, for example. Like, what is the layout here? It's confusing. The level in general just looks completely ugly. And what about the level before? The fight against Lawlad is a really short level. It should only take you around 5 minutes. A mixture of bad level design, bad AI, the camera, and controls make this level unnecessarily frustrating. You might as well stay in one spot, because by the time you get high enough to attack Lawlad, he's already gone. Also, Homer serves no purpose in this level. He does zero work. I will admit the first level was pretty good, and maybe the second one too, but when it gets to the race, it just got bad. Also, Mo looks a little weird. He just looks off-model in this level. This level primarily uses Homer's ball move, which controls like shit, by the way. Let's point out the obvious. You see that timer? Completely useless. Because you can literally walk into the next area and get 2 more minutes for 3 times in a row. Oh, sorry, 4 times. I think now is a perfect time to talk about the camera. I don't know if it's what it is about these companies and cameras. I simply cannot fathom the idea that a camera is a hard thing to implement into a game. This is definitely the worst offender of any game I've ever played. Unlike Mario 64 with the camera, it's just kinda janky. In the Simpsons game, the camera actively works against you. Here, how about you just watch this? I try to move my camera, but instead it wants to try and go in the opposite direction. In return, I fall. I try the same thing with Bar. Again, the camera wants to try and go in the opposite direction. Now all this criticism could be chalked up to, hey, it's the Wii version. I have played other versions, not in a long time, but I couldn't imagine it's just a Wii version with a terrible camera. And if that's the case, it was so poorly optimized, as most Nintendo products are. The controls, I guess, are fine. There's this little weird, annoying thing that happens with these red buttons. Because the button to press these red buttons is the A button. And on the Wii version, that means you have to stand completely still next to the button, or you're gonna jump. Because the A button is also the jump button. It's a minor thing, but it's gotten me killed a few times. Again, with level 3, the ending part is more frustrating than it needs to be, because the controls and cameras are bad, and because Homer's fat ass won't shoot in the right direction. Another big problem I have with this game is the things you have to do to progress are very vague. You almost have no direction of where you have to go. And a lot of games do this. Hell, one of my favorite games of all time, Half-Life 2, does this. But the difference between Half-Life 2 and the Simpsons game's vague progression, in Half-Life 2 it's very rewarding to find a way to go, because it's an actual puzzle. In the Simpsons game, however, the vague progression isn't rewarding because it's not like, oh wow, I discovered this by myself. It's, no, how the hell was I supposed to know that? Or how was I supposed to find that? So you're supposed to knock this meatball down, spaghetti falls, but the thing is, it wasn't conveyed in any way. It literally just looks like a part of the scenery, and to make it worse, you don't even need the damn thing to get up. Level 2's ending. How the hell is a small kid supposed to find this out? You need to grab onto one of these poles, because you fly, because if you fly into it, it pushes you away. So you have to fly directly at it. The combat is very whack, especially if you're fighting hordes of enemies. For some reason, if you don't punch them right, you get punched instead. It's not a huge issue because the game's not hard. You don't die a lot besides with platforming. Platforming isn't very good in this game. It's just not. You have to be precise and jump at the right time. It's frustrating in how precise you have to be. Personally, I'm not a big fan of 3D platforms. It just feels weird to me. But in my eyes, I think the biggest problem with this game is how damn long it drags on. This game takes about 7 hours to complete, That might not sound like a lot, but compared to other 2 games I talked about across the second mention, being 4 hours and Robotic Revenge being 2, you could beat both of these games before you can beat the Simpsons game. And if you're wondering why I'm making such a big deal out of this, most licensed kids games don't go on for that long. Battlefield King Bottom is 9.5 hours. Difference is, it's an actual good game. Did you know this game has bosses? What do you think I'm gonna say about the bosses? What have I been complaining about for the last however long this video's been going on? The final boss against God is just okay. It's just Dance Dance Revolution, or if you're a masochist, Friday Night Funkin'. It's just not hard in general. Would I recommend you play this game? Absolutely not. Play Robotic Revenge over it. It seems like I'm being too harsh on this game. But let me remind you, I sat through all these games in one sitting. Every single game. It's starting... Oh, my brain is completely fried beyond comprehension. I am so done with this stupid game. It's that bad. How perfect. That was my 4,000 words. Looking back on licensed kid games in general, I grew up with them a lot. But man, were they shit. Obviously, not all of them are. There's some really good ones out there. Phineas and Ferb one was pretty good. And there are some licensed kid games I want to talk about in the future. Like Rise of the Underminer from the Heavy Iron Studios, which is the same people who do the SpongeBob games. I'm also planning on doing a video on the Heavy Iron Studios SpongeBob trilogy, but for now, I think I'm done with this. Well, time to work on a different script. In video games, one thing is almost certain. Death. Death has been part of video games almost since the beginning. As video games evolved, so have the ways people have died, and some are quite horrifying. I probably wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. Some of them are slow and painful, some are scary, and most definitely horrific. To being suffocated, to having your atoms stretch across the galaxy, and all the way up to being slowly crushed, peeled, and ripped apart by something made for child entertainment. Death is a scary thing unless you're me and you don't feel anything anymore, which in that case, I'm so sorry. So join me as I take a look at the top 7 horrifying ways to die in video games. Before we begin, look at this. Yeah, that's pretty bad, but if you sub, it'll be better. So go down and hit the like button and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, more than you would think. And it's free. It only takes 5 seconds to do. And with that being said, on to the countdown. Mario 64 surprisingly has a lot of ways to die. There's even a video with 15 million views on YouTube about 120 ways to die in Mario 64. And because there's so many ways to die in Mario 64, most of them could be on this list, but easily the most horrifying is quicksand. Suffocation is possibly one of the most horrifying ways to die in general. Suffocation happens a lot in Mario games. Surprisingly, a lot. Like, a lot. And quicksand is definitely the worst one. Quicksand in real life isn't really dangerous. It's quite near impossible to die unless you're actively trying to. Then you're probably better off dead anyway. Quicksand only appears in one level, Shifting Sandland, so you probably won't die to it a lot, but it's still pretty horrifying. The way Mario just sinks as he yells and begs just kinda makes it a little more unsettling. Mario has counted quicksand in other games, even the most recent Mario game in Odyssey, but 64 easily has the most horrific. Oddly, it's more realistic, and I think it makes it worse. Fire is a very common thing in video games, just like the demons it spawns, whispering to me at night, telling me and warning me of the painful end to my life that shall be coming soon. I mean, fire is a very pretty thing, but it can also be dangerous and kill you. It can also kill people you don't like. In a lot of games, fire is used as a weapon, and oh man, is it satisfying. Ooh man, the way the flames shoot out and latch onto any poor fool caught in the crossfire. Fire is a beautiful thing, and I'm not the only one who thinks that. There's literally a whole game where you do nothing but burn stuff. It's beautiful, but it's also a pretty horrible way to die. But it's so funny. I mean, could you really blame me for saying that? I'm a pyro main for God's sake. I get an unnatural amount of joy seeing people burst into flames, especially if I'm the one doing it. For legal reasons, that's a joke. Fire is a versatile tool in games, and if I have the opportunity to light an enemy on fire, I'm good, I'm happy. But deep down, like really deep down, I kind of feel bad. Dying to fire is a horrific way to go. Your skin being slowly burnt off until you die. Burning your finger on the stove is already bad enough. I can only imagine how it feels to be fully burned. Left 4 Dead 2, in my opinion, is the only good zombie game. Don't at me. I don't care about your COD zombie. Left 4 Dead 2 has a very unique feature in the form of the special infected. Okay, yeah, I know that's a very broad entry, but give me a chance. Each special infected has their own abilities and ways to kill you, and some are quite horrific. So I'll go through them one at a time, from least dangerous to most dangerous. The Boomer has no real way of directly killing you, so no need to talk about it. The Jockey is not very dangerous compared to the other special infected. It will rapidly approach you until it gets close enough and jump on your head. It can hurt you, but it mostly pulls you toward the horde. The Hunter does almost the exact same thing, but it pins you to the floor instead. The Charger, as its name implies, charges towards you, and if it gets a hold of you by you standing in its way, it will slam you onto the floor until you die, which you could probably imagine it would be painful. The Witch is up next, and I already talked about the Witch in this video. It's a one-hit knockdown, so yeah. The tank is very scary, big, and strong. It can kill you. It's actually strong enough to rip concrete and throw it at you. And the second to last special infected is the Smoker. The Smoker, despite its name, can strangle survivors with its long tongue, which some people find hot, and I'm not one of them. Being strangled is a painful way to die for sure, but definitely the most horrifying way to die in Left 4 Dead 2 is by the Spitter. If I had to pick one, the Spitter would take the spot. It spits acid from long distances, and upon hitting the floor, it will stick to you and burn you. Acid obviously hurts a lot, and if you run up what I said in the last entry, I said burning would be a really painful way to die. I hate this game. Why do I keep bringing it up in my videos? Mario Galaxy, besides being a terrible game, has a lot of ways to die like Mario 64. It seems Nintendo has way too much fun coming up ways to kill Mario, but this game easily has the worst out of the whole franchise. Mario Galaxy being set in space, obviously Nintendo would add space-themed death. And of course, Nintendo being Nintendo, they chose the most terrifying option, Black Hole. Black holes are scary, and the thought of being sucked into one is even more scary. And we don't even know what would happen. Mario casually just jumps around them like they're not even there, not realizing the danger and horrible fate awaits him if he dare makes one wrong move. Having the atoms stretched across the galaxy does not sound pleasant, and in Mario Galaxy, there's a concerning amount of black holes next to each other that would definitely cause a singularity. So most of the time, if you miss a jump, you're gonna have Mario sucked into the black hole. And do you really want that? I do. This game fucking sucks. Get it out of my face. Half-Life 2 is honestly my favorite game of all time, and despite me only playing it for the first time in 2022, it's that good. And I plan on making a video about it. Honestly, I can go on and on about how well this game nails stuff like environment and locations, even the most simplest details. One of my favorite locations is the abandoned town of Ravenholm. I like the environment, the atmosphere, and the variety of enemies. Speaking of enemies, if you've ever played Half-Life 2 or you know anything remotely about it, you know of the enemies plaguing the town of Ravenholm are the headcrab zombies. The headcrab is Half-Life 2's most famous enemy. Even if you don't know anything about Half-Life 2, you probably know what a headcrab is. And more die-hard Half-Life 2 fans know the terrible fate of a headcrab zombie. Now, the fate of a headcrab zombie is like a normal zombie. You probably know if a zombie bites you, you turn into one. But the way the headcrab zombie turns you into one is horrifying. Headcrabs are parasites. The wiki says they're about the size of a pumpkin, and that's pretty big. Headcrabs jump with the four legs, latching onto the victim's head and using their mouth on the bottom of them, digging into their skulls, slowly stripping away flesh of the host, bending and contorting their limbs into monstrous shapes. Now, that would have been bad enough, but Valve confirmed the host is still alive and can very much feel pain, so every time you shoot one, they can feel it. They can also feel anything else you do to them. Buzzsaws, exploding barrels, crowbars, grenades, fire, all of it. The worst part is the screams of pain when you set one on fire. So, before you go to bed tonight, why don't you check on your bed for some head crabs? Final Freddy's has a lot of ways to die, like being okay, you already knew it was going to be spring locks. Plus, I spoiled it in the beginning. Now, we don't know entirely what happens when you get spring locks, but we have a basic understanding. And what we do know is pretty horrific. Looking at Scott's official model, it looks like 4 metal rods get lodged into the victim's lower and upper jaw. and even more rods to get lodged into the left and right cheeks. The neck seems to be completely torn away with nothing but a few strings, not to mention his eyelids have been permanently pried open with more metal rods digging into his eyes. That's only the head. The worst has yet to come to any poor fool who gets trapped. It crushes your entire body, breaking all your bones, plus your ribs, and not just that, it rips you apart. There's been a lot of depictions of what really happens when you get spring locked. Looking at William's corpse, you can see his body was infused, merged, and mangled with the endoskeletons. It looks like in FNAF for this minigame, after being spring locked, William just bleeds out. Being spring locked is a horrifying way to die, mostly because it's real slow. But it's not the worst. The #1 most horrifying way to die in a video game is almost every fatality in Mortal Kombat. This entry is extremely obvious. In Mortal Kombat, when performing a fatality, you don't simply kill your opponent, you completely mutilate them in the most horrible way imaginable. And because YouTube's kind of touchy on this subject, it's gonna be hard to show. But I imagine you already know what it looks like. I'm showing MK1's fatalities because they're not realistic at all, not the new MK1. God, that's a terrible naming decision. Now, there's no one fatality to take the spot. I will give special mention to Melina's MK2 fatality and all the fatalities in MKX. Mortal Kombat X's fatalities are honestly more gruesome than Mortal Kombat 11's. It's just the gore they use, just looks more cartoonish. Mortal Kombat 11's fatalities look more realistic. I just prefer MKX's, and overall, the fatalities are better. The cartoon gore really lends itself to how over-the-top and horrifying Mortal Kombat's fatalities really are. And that was the end. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did making it. Honestly, I might have missed a few, and some of my entries might not be the most horrifying, but it's just my opinion. I feel in recent times, game developers have strayed away from really making deaths in their games horrifying. I understand that might upset some people, but at the end of the day, it's just a video game. If you did enjoy that video, leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and it's free. And I'll see you in the next video. Now get out! Terraria, like most games I review, I have a history with, but unlike the other games, Terraria isn't very nostalgic, despite me playing it for a long while, and my opinions have changed a lot since first playing it. As the video reads, I have some mixed opinions about Terraria. I want to make this abundantly clear. I am not a noob at Terraria, nor am I new. I've been playing Terraria since it first released on mobile, which was August 26, 2013, so a long while ago. I grew up playing a different version, primarily 1.2. I did play a little bit of 1.3, but not a lot. Terraria has changed a lot from when I played it religiously, but there was a period in my life where I didn't even touch Terraria for a long while. I didn't touch Terraria from 2017 to 2021. I didn't play it, nor did I even acknowledge its existence. And by the time I came back, Journey's End had already came out. And coming back, it felt like a new entire game. But I have to come clean about something. I never beat Terraria, even before Journey's End. And why? Well, I'll get to that later. Over the years, Terraria has become an enigma to me. Like, I know it's there, it's in my Steam library, but I never really got the urge to beat it, or hell, even launch it. Well, I finally bit the bullet and beat Terraria for this video. And how did it go? Like the title reads, mixed. I have several problems with Terraria, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's back up and start at the beginning. I will be talking about pre-hard mode and hard mode at separate sections, so if I repeat myself sometimes during hard mode section, that's why. Also, before anyone comments that I'm just hating on Terraria because it's popular and it's different from what other reviewers say about Terraria, no. I really don't care about being different. Hell, I make top 10 videos, that's not my goal. It's just I have different opinions about Terraria than everyone else, because I view video games different from anyone's. AKA, I don't really like video games. So why did I make a channel about it? I don't know. I thought it would be an interesting point of view. Anyway, let's begin with the video. Let's get the obvious out of the way. This game is similar to Minecraft. Yes, you're so hilarious. Would you like a medal? I must say, Terraria is absolutely beautiful. The pixel art is immaculate. Even better if you're someone like me who has an absolute potato PC, you're in luck. Terraria is not demanding at all. Even the newest update runs nicely, which is surprising because I can barely run Half-Life 1, so you never have to worry about it.
If you play a new world on Terraria for the first time, you'll notice quite a few customizations options, which is neat and really adds to more personalization. I should probably mention that every world is pre-generated. There are seeds, but there's really no point of using them. Loading up the world is quite barren, and that's why the player must build houses to bring NPCs, which helps with progression. Like, you really need these NPCs. The shit they give you just makes it way easier. You start off with nothing but a sword, pickaxe, and axe. Most of Terraria, if it wasn't obvious by now, is exploring. That's the name of the game. I don't mean that's the name of the actual game. The name is Terraria. I didn't mean like that. It's an expression, for God's sake. Terraria is a very personal game. Terraria is built as your own personal game as a player and moves at your pace. So if you want to spend 50 hours building a house, go ahead. Nothing in the game stopping you. If you want to do nothing but mine all day and get all the stuff you need, skip right to the bosses, that's fine too. Progression is a balancing act that you get to dictate. Speaking of progression, let's talk about my first gripe. The progression. I want to start off by saying Terraria is a completely fair game. If you die, it's your fault. There's no obscene difficulty curve, so it moves at the consistent pace. Progression is just slow. Real slow. I'm probably gonna bring up Minecraft a few times, because obviously, but Terraria is a far longer game than Minecraft. More bosses, more armors, more things to do, and much more. Granted, I've never completed Minecraft, neither. As the name implies, you do a lot of mining in Minecraft. The mining is calming, and there's a lot of ores you need to get next to the surface, besides diamonds. Terraria arguably has more depth when it comes to mining than in Minecraft. In Minecraft, you basically do the same thing over and over again in every playthrough. You start mining a certain ore until you get enough to craft tools to get to another one, and so on and so forth until you beat the game. Terraria, on the other hand, is not so simple. Not in the slightest. I would say about 70% of Terraria is looking and mining ores. And the worst part, it's slow and painful, depending on what size you have the world at. Mining becomes more tedious, and boy oh boy, when you need that one ore, you're gonna spend hours looking for that specific ore. Most of my criticism I give in this video can be chalked up to me and my ADHD monkey brain. I am very impatient when it comes to games. Not in the sense that it pisses me off, no, that I like getting through games as fast as I can, and no, I'm not talking about speedrunning. As Terraria gets more updates, they add more and more items and ore that you need to get. Most of the time when playing Terraria, you're going to get something that you need to progress, which I find kind of boring. And you might think that's why I never finished this game. It's because I get bored too easily. And honestly, I can knock out mining pretty easily if I just zone out. I told you, I'll get to why I never finished the game when I get to it later. To get some items, you have to do a whole shopping list of things, like meteor armor. You need to break a shadow orb to get a chance to summon the goblin army, then you have to wait for them to spawn, defeat the goblin army, and wait for the meteor to land. What about molting armor? You go to get a nightmare pickaxe, get an obsidian skin, mine your way down to hell, but on the way there you have to collect some obsidian. When you get to hell, you have to find a hell forge, smelt everything, throw your obsidian skin on, then mine the hell fire iron. Let's back up to meteor armor. You don't need it at all. A lot of stuff is useless. Platinum armor is good enough to beat every boss before the Wall of Flesh. Speaking of which, you know what Terraria does get right? Bosses. Hold on. Did I just compliment a boss in a video game out loud? Yeah, I thought this day would never come too. But yeah, Terraria has some really good bosses. What's even better about them is they're actually challenging. I don't think a game has ever made me nervous about a boss more than Terraria's Wall of Flesh. I don't know how an indie game got boss fights right, but a AAA game doesn't. Now, the pre-hard mode bosses aren't, well, hard. I didn't die to a single boss during my recording session for this video. Pre-hard mode bosses. We'll get to hard mode bosses when the time comes. Terraria's bosses are unique, design-wise.
Hell, not really. But the battles? Totally. Terraria's bosses are just plain old fun. It's weird. It's not like something I've never played before. I can't really describe what it is about Terraria's bosses that just make them fun compared to other bosses I fought in other games. I think it's just the charm of Terraria. It's quite unlike anything else I've played in the game. But that doesn't mean all bosses are good. King Slime and Queen Bee aren't very interesting. I guess you could make the exception for King Slime because he is the first boss. But Queen Slime is right before Skeletron. In fact, I don't even fight Queen Bee until after the Wall of Flesh as a boss. Queen Bee serves no purpose. You really don't get anything useful out of it at that point of the game. After beating Skeletron, you have to prepare for the ultimate challenge of pre-hard mode. The Wall of Flesh. The ultimate test.
You have to use everything you've learned up to that point, because once you beat the Wall of Flesh, the true game begins.
Hard mode. Something I want to hone in and focus on is the tonal whiplash between pre-hard mode and hard mode. Once beating the Wall of Flesh, the whole world and everything you learned about the game until that point completely changes besides a very basic layout. Almost everything has changed. New enemies, new biomes, new NPCs, new everything. Now, it's not the biggest issue, but if you were to play Terraria for the first time, you wouldn't really be prepared. Not just because of the layout, but the difficulty spike when you first enter hard mode. Everything gets 10 times more buff. Every new jungle enemy just kills you in one hit. When you enter hard mode for the first time, do you want to guess what you have to do? That's right, the same thing you've been doing, mining. But this time, you have to do it 3 times before you even fight a single boss. By the way, let's go back to the useless items thing I was talking about on pre-hard mode. If you remember, I said meteor armor was quite useless, and guess what? The first 2, as always, you have to mine. You don't even need to craft the armor for. Crafting the armor is just wasting time. You just need the pickaxe so you can get titanium. Then the armor starts becoming useful, but it just takes so damn long. I did most of the mining off screen. However, I did run a time in the background, and combining all up the times, it took 4 hours. I don't know what it is. There's like no titanium anywhere where I was mining. And it's not the first time the Terraria gods hated me, nor is it the last. Okay, let's move past that. Once you got all the titanium, you can now take on the destroyer. Except you can't because you need wings. And what you look at there, more grinding. Terraria fans might not be able to understand why I'm complaining so much about grinding, and hell, I'm not even the only one doing it. But you must understand something. Grinding is what you do for most of the game, and like I mentioned before, it's slow. No one likes grinding, because, oh look, people online complaining about Terraria's grinding problem. Thankfully, after destroying all 3 mechanical bosses, there's not much grinding left to do. There's something much worse, however. Sometimes Terraria is just flat out bullshit, and I don't mean it's unfair, it's just so fucking stupid sometimes. I swear to God, I have some of the worst luck when it comes to Terraria. So the first time I decided I wanted to fight the Destroyer, you know what happens to Blood Moon? And because of the Blood Moon, I died. Terraria relies on a lot of RNG, and some of it just feels like death warmed over. Because if you get unlucky during a boss fight, you're going to have to do that boss fight again because of the Blood Moon. And just like I mentioned with the Destroyer, the Blood Moon happened again when I was fighting the twins. Did you know this game has events? Even bosses have their own events. Yeah, the Blood Moon is something called an event, and some of them are quite annoying, and there's some that are laughably cheesable. But they come at the most horrible time without fail. Anything good I can say? Well, Terraria never forces you to do something. Halfway through getting shit you need, you can just stop and build, which I like, because you can move at your own pace. In Terraria, you can create something called an arena, which you might think is used for bosses, and you be correct. But they're not necessary. It's your choice. Terraria doesn't force you to build them. If you want to build an arena, it will help undoubtedly. And there's some bosses you're just gonna need to build an arena for, like Plantera and Duke Fishron. But Duke Fishron isn't necessary to beat. In fact, there's a lot of bosses that aren't necessary to beat. But they do give you some helpful items. So most of the time it is worth going after them for some weapons that can absolutely bust and shred bosses. Terraria is a very deep game. On the surface, it just looks like an 8-bit retro survivor, but that's far from that. Terraria is surprisingly a pretty chunky game. Believe it or not, there are different types of classes in Terraria, which is so bizarre because Terraria looks so simplistic, yet is a full-fledged RPG. There's a lot of replayability if you're not me. I don't know, man. I don't think I can play this game, or rather beat it again. In Terraria, you basically do the same thing every time you load up a world. It's just flat out boring to me. If you love that type of stuff, that's fine, good for you. But when combining it with everything else that makes Terraria bad, it's just so much, man. I can give another example. The Moon Lord. In order to fight the Moon Lord, you must kill the Golem. After beating the Golem, the lunatic cultists will appear. Kill them, and you get some Celestial Pillars. Then after beating Celestial Pillars, you have a chance to beat the Moon Lord. And then if you die, oh, well, you have to do it all over again. Actually, you can craft a Celestial Sigil to spawn the Moon Lord again. Yes, you can craft a Celestial Sigil, but it's more than the sum of its parts. What I'm trying to say is it takes so damn long to get. You might as well just beat everything over again. I've been screwed over a lot by this game, and it just makes it impossible for me to want to come back. Before we go on, let's talk about the Blood Moon. Ugh. The Blood Moon is one of the worst things about Terraria. I hate it. I swear to God, it happens at the most inconvenient of times. Both times I tried to fight the Destroyer and the twins, it happened. It happens way too often. Usually, when you get overpowered and you're able to slay and absolutely decimate enemies during events, it's satisfying. During the Blood Moon, however, it's just way too much. Look at the clip! Look how long it's been going on for! And it's still going. I did 5 milestones. For those who don't know what the milestones are, it counts how many times you killed an enemy by every 50 enemies. If you kill a 50 enemy, you get a banner. I got 5 of them! If they're going to update the game, please make the Blood Moon happen less. Jesus Christ. What about the achievements, you may be wondering? Why would you? Why do you want to do this to me? What did I do to you? I would say I like achievement hunting, but Terraria's achievements are complete bullshit. Like, why is Mecha Mayhem and Bucket of Bolts 2 different achievements? And to get the obvious out of the way, Supreme Helper Minion can absolutely go fuck itself. Some achievements are just flat out stupid and make absolutely no sense. Unusual survival strategies, delayed death from drowning by drinking water. And the achievement description even acknowledges how stupid it is. And what about a shimmer in the dark? What in God's name is that even supposed to mean? It's a minor nitpick, but as someone who enjoys achievement hunting, I get no pleasure from even attempting these, because most of them are just frustrating, and they just make no sense, and take so long to do. Okay, let's get something straight. I can knock Terraria all day, and it's not gonna take away from how near perfect this game is, and obviously I'm not the biggest fan of it. I mean, I'll play it every once in a while, but it's not the funnest thing to do for me. Terraria has held the test of time. The quality from this indie game is so great it rivals AAA games, and it's one of the most polished games I've ever seen. And it's been released on big consoles, and no one can take that away. 505 Games has completely blown Terraria's quality out of the water, and is still passionate about Terraria today. At the time of recording this video, Terraria has and is still being updated. And there are still people who really love this game, like real diehard fans. There's still new people trying it every day. This game is nearly 12 years old and people are still passionate about it. So are the developers. In a weird way, I find that kinda wholesome. It's only $10, and for a $10 game, you get a lot of mileage out of it. There's a lot of depth in Terraria, as I mentioned earlier. At the end of the day, Terraria does a lot of things right. The bosses are real nice, the music sounds amazing, the pixel art is charming. But there are some things in this game that really bugs me. But I do know there are people out there with thousands of hours who still play and love this game. Seriously? 1,000 hours? The only game I ever hit 1,000 hours on was TF2, and that took 3 years. What the fuck's wrong with people? Before the video ends, let's review all the bosses, shall we? King Slime, the first boss, not too difficult. It is good at money grinding. The Eye of Cthulhu. The Eater of Worlds. Funny worm dies almost instantly. Enough said. The Brain of Cthulhu.
You might have a brain, but I have a gun!
The Queen Bee. Who? Skeletron. Skeletron is one of my favorite video game bosses in general. Skeletron is interesting as a boss, and in Terraria lore, there's a lot about him. I think that's pretty cool. The Wall of Flesh. The Wall of Flesh really isn't that challenging of a boss, nor is it really that interesting. Just sometimes you get incredibly unlucky when it comes to fighting it. Queen Slime. Not terribly difficult, but she can give you a few troubles. The Destroyer. Easiest out of the mechanical bosses, but doesn't mean he's a breeze. The Twins. Retinism should have been called Rasmatism. Skeletron Prime. Laughably easy, just a bullet sponge. Plant Terror. That's it. What about the other bosses? I didn't fight them yet! But you said you beat the game. I know what I said. This game takes a long while to beat, and it's just tedious and frustrating. Do you expect me to beat every game I review? Don't answer that. And why did I never beat Terraria? Well, every single time I've beaten Terraria, for some reason, my progress gets reset. I don't know why this happens. I guess the Terraria gods just hate me. Every single time, without fail. And that's why I never beat it before. It happens every time. Yeah, the first time I was trying to do this, it happened. What about the second time? Not so much. I didn't beat it this time, well, because I have better things to do than play this shite game. And in conclusion, 2D Minecraft's pretty good. This game gets a solid 6 Minecraft blocks out of 10. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is the quintessential black sheep of the Five Nights franchise. There's multiple reasons why people aren't particularly enthralled with FNAF 3, despite it arguably being the most important entry. And why is that? The most popular reason being thrown around is just too easy. Up until that point, Five Nights at Freddy's have been known for having some particularly challenging challenges. And arguably, FNAF 3 was the most hyped game in the franchise. Even to this day, it's safe to say it definitely did not live up to the expectation. And why it is? It's just way too easy. Only one enemy can actually kill you, and that being Springtrap. But I got a sneaky idea that's been brewing in my mind for however long FNAF 3's been out for. Jesus Christ, 8 years? Anyway, what's my idea? What if the Phantoms could kill you? And I put this idea to the test. No, I didn't make some fancy mod or anything. I'll explain how the challenge goes. If I get jump scared by a Phantom at any point, I must reset the game by pressing the escape key. And that's it. I don't know how much harder the game's going to be because I wrote this before doing the challenge like most videos, but FNAF 3 is based on a lot of RNG, so this might be impossible, this might be a complete breeze. Either way, it's an interesting idea, so no more messing around, let's get to the challenge. Oh yeah, before we get to the challenge, how about you subscribe? It only takes 5 seconds to do, and it's free. So you get nothing but gain out of it. You subscribe, I make videos. Simple, onto the video. I would like to start this section off by saying this challenge was deceptively challenging, but I'll get to that when the time comes. Night 1 is, well, Night 1. There's no enemies even on the map, so there's not much to talk about. It was just incredibly boring. I guess since there's nothing to do on Night 1, let me explain how the game goes, just in case you've never played Five Nights at Freddy's 3. You have a system called the maintenance system. Throughout the night you'll get random errors, and then you have to go to the panel, flip it up, and reboot it. That's one of the main problems you have to deal with. The next one being Springtrap. And the way you deal with him is you have to learn him with the play audio button, and depending where he is, he'll go to that location. Sometimes, yeah, he doesn't go to the location you send him to. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it has gotten me killed a few times. And trust me, I'll get to that when we get to that. Night 1 is largely uneventful, so on to Night 2. Night 2, on the other hand, was surprisingly difficult. I underestimated this challenge, and in this challenge, I experienced some of the most bullshit things I have ever experienced in a video, or while making a video. I experienced a lot of bullshit in videos, like the Christmas special. It would just suffer from a bad script, bad acting, and bad editing, and a bunch of other stuff. The top 10 best Mario games was plagued by it taking almost 2 years because I gave up halfway through the video. So my viewpoints at the time of making that video were completely different, so none of it flowed together. The Righteous Bison video suffered because I wasn't really interested in the topic halfway through. But this video is some of the most RNG bullshit I've ever encountered in a game. I now know why Scott made the Phantoms not kill you, because they appear way too much. Certain Phantoms, if you get them, it's just game over, like Phantom Mango and Phantom Chica. They kill you no matter what. FNAF 3 becomes way more difficult when you're not just worrying about Springtrap, but the Phantoms too. They went from slightly inconvenient to a massive annoyance. It was at this point where I began to realize how tedious this was going to be, and oh boy, Night 2 went catastrophically terrible. It was probably due to me not playing FNAF 3 for a while, but it took me at least several tries to beat Night 2. Overall, I died a few times, but it wasn't too challenging, so on to Night 3. Night 3 went surprisingly smooth. I got back into the groove of things and I remembered how to play well and how to keep Springtrap at bay the best. The best way to keep Springtrap at bay is keeping him between Cam 7 and 8. But there's also a downside to that, for this challenge at least. See, Cam 7 and Cam 8 spawn two of the most annoying Phantoms, Phantom Chica and Phantom Puppet, and trust me, Phantom Chica will pop up more times than once during this video. While I'm at it, let's look at the vent system real quick. If you look at the footage before you'll notice this map toggle. Clicking it will send you to the vents. And the vents is where you keep Springtrap away from you. But Springtrap also likes doing it to trick you or get to you much easier and faster. For the most part, Springtrap will spend most of his time outside the vents, but time to time he will crawl into them. And you have maybe a few seconds to get to the vents and seal him in by double clicking the camera. It's very finicky and you have a small window of time to actually click on it. It's very inconsistent with the time. You have sometimes to be able to reboot an entire system, then you have enough time to click it. And sometimes he'll crawl right out as soon as he enters. It's very annoying. The Phantoms weren't too much of a bother on this night. It was quite easy only dying one time. So let's move on to Night 4. Night 4, just like Night 2, was atrocious. Night 4 easily took the longest time to do out of all of them. And this is where problems start to arise with FNAF 3. FNAF 3 is not balanced in the slightest. Now, FNAF 3 isn't difficult, it's just kind of bullshit. Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is definitely my most played FNAF game of all time, without a doubt. It's my first FNAF game I actually paid for instead of downloading it off of one of those weird apps that give you free games on mobile. I know the ins and outs of FNAF 3, so it's not very challenging, but for some goddamn reason, on this night in particular, some of the most infuriating things happened to me. Let's start off with the most common thing. In FNAF 3, and all FNAF games, really, besides, I guess, the ones after FNAF 3, but that's besides the point. The cameras are kind of important besides the second one, which, I mean, you still kind of need the cameras, but, you know. So you would think the cameras would be the most fleshed out and polished, because if you miss Springtrap by even a few seconds, he will make his way to you. It is very hard to find him on the camera. So what happens when a visual glitch occurs that makes it impossible to find him? This weird visual glitch happened a few times on Night 4, and only on Night 4, that I never encountered in my entire life of playing FNAF 3. Take a look at the footage in front of you. You see how Springtrap is in Cam 8? Well, guess what? He's also in my office. So tell me, how am I supposed to find him if he's on Cam 8, but he's also in my office? Hey, so this is editing Dominic right here. The glitch I'm talking about, I was talking about, it's kind of hard to explain. So the thing is, it's hard to convey with no sound, but currently, the clip you just saw with him in Cam 8, he was also, he also just got out of the vents, and he was still on Cam 8, so it's kind of hard to see, so that's, that. Hope that clears things up. How can I even trust the cameras at this point? This one glitch killed me so many times I've lost track. The amount of shit I encountered through this playthrough for this challenge I've never seen before is astounding. I'll list off a few of them. First, obviously the thing I just talked about, the cameras. The second thing is sometimes Springtrap just wouldn't be on the cameras at all. And I'm not talking about him hiding away somewhere. He physically was not on any of the frames. I know there are some camera frames where he's practically invisible, but he was nowhere to be found. When I started playing Night 5, I'll be talking about this now because I'm not going to bring it up at Night 5, this weird glitch happened about 3 times where Springtrap will constantly go in and out of the vents even though it was sealed off until 12 AM into 3 AM. This only happened on Night 5, just like how only the camera thing happened on Night 4. And for the first time I've ever seen on camera and in videos or anywhere, FNAF 3 somehow crashed.
Handling technique. When using an animatronic as a sim, please...
I've never seen a FNAF game crash. Besides security read, but that's a steaming pile of shit. I've seen Five Nights at Freddy's run on some pretty potato computers, and mine is pretty bad. It's from 2009, but it's not that bad. It can still run games from like 2015. I've literally never seen any of this happen. I've never seen anyone talk about this in any review of Five Nights at Freddy's 3, nor it's like any slight mention of it. Any of these glitches. I've really never seen anyone mention these glitches. I feel like I'm going insane, like I'm the only one who ever encountered this. And I don't know if it's all in my head or what. I've encountered some pretty weird shit during the making of some of these videos. I've never, ever seen any of this appear in any of the people's video, which makes me feel like a schizo. Either way, the glitches on this night were so bad, I had to defend myself from the last 2 hours by keeping Springtrap at Cam 1. But eventually, I did go through it, after at least 15 tries. But nothing could prepare me for Night 5. Night 5 was easily the hardest night, and not just because it was Night 5. Either my luck sucks or Springtrap is on something. And just like the other nights, let me add something that I discovered or encountered on a certain night. So what did I encounter or discover on this night? Well, Springtrap likes to go into the vents. You get a small window of time, except it's different every time, like I mentioned earlier. You could either have all the time in the world or have a slight second. It's different every single time. It's basically gambling every time he goes into the vents. Maybe it's because I had to consistently replay this night over and over again, but I never noticed this stuff playing this, like, before. There weren't big issues. But during this whole challenge, it seems like the game was actively going against me from the very beginning. And not in the sense that there's actually things going after me. You know, the game mechanics itself. The amount of problems I encountered during this challenge alone made me realize FNAF 3 isn't really that good of a game. You might be wondering, oh, I only just realized that? But FNAF 3 has always been a guilty pleasure. FNAF 3 went from a guilty pleasure to a guilty go for myself. FNAF 3 isn't a hard game by any stretch of the imagination, but sometimes it's very, very bullshit. How many times have I said bullshit in this video? Anyway, eventually I did beat the night after a good few tries. I mean few, I actually mean like 15. But either way, it's over. These are the total death tallies of each animatronic. But Springtrap has a whopping, yeah. The total amount of attempts equals out to 40. I probably missed a few because there's like 2 hours of footage and FNAF 3 gameplay is just boring. Anyway, the conclusion. This challenge sucked. It took a lot longer than I expected to. I was expecting maybe a few tries, but I guess that didn't happen because, you know, why would anything go my way? Especially, why would I be happy? But I digress. If I had to rate this experience of this challenge, it wasn't too difficult, it was just annoying at some points, but it was fine. It was a little boring, especially due to the fact that the last Five Nights at Freddy's review I did a complete 180 of my opinion of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, so that probably didn't help in any way. Anyways, that was the challenge. It's done. Also, I didn't attempt Night 6 because I really didn't want to after how long Night 5 took, so that's something. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
Now get out.
With 1,000 hours in TF2, I can confidently say I've built up some opinions on certain weapons. The last TF2 video I did was the top 9 worst weapons in TF2. So what else to do but to find the best weapons? What weapon triumphed over the others? Well, that's why I'm here today. The worst weapons were pretty bad. I would say the good weapons are even more good than the bad ones are bad, if that makes sense. The rules, as always, are the same. No stock because they would take up most of the list, and no reskins. Balance will not be taken in consideration.
I choose what to be on this list fully depends on what I find fun to play. It might not be the best weapons out there, but it's the most fun to play for me. I play how I play, and I play like shit. For the most part, Valve has done a good job balancing each weapon, so that won't be much of a problem. Some of these options probably will irritate you, and think of me as an annoying little shit. Some of these weapons are unfun to play against, but that makes it even more enticing. Also, these are my opinions. I forgot to state this in the last video, and someone absolutely blew a gasket in the comment section of the last TF2 video about the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol is overpowered. Could you imagine in 2023 there are some people out there who consider the Pretty Boy pocket pistol legitimately broken? Most sane TF2 player. Also, go down and hit the like button and subscribe button. It helps me a lot more than you would think. And it's free. It only takes 5 seconds to do. With that being said, on to number 9. Scout secondaries are very meh. Here's my quick opinion on every scout secondary. The stock pistol is decent, Pretty Boy's pocket pistol smells like shit, the Winger sucks ass, Bonk is absolutely useless, and Critical is funny, especially on spells. And the Flying Guillotine is a thing. Leaving one left. Mad Milk is a really good tool for scouts who want to be more aggressive. Splashing it on an enemy, for every point of damage you deal, you are rewarded with health. This is really the only scout weapon that has any effect on your team, being able to extinguish teammates. This weapon is actually pretty useful on 1v1s. In most cases, it will grant you the upper hand or give you an advantage to win a team fight, cap a point, or steal the intel, because you get 60% of your health for acting damaging someone. You can actually take most classes on and come out on top. The difference between the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol, which also gives you house, is the fact that the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol deals less damage than stock pistol and has a smaller clip. Only the user themselves can gain health back on hit, where the Mad Milk, your whole team can gain health back on hit. It's very similar to the Cleaner's Combine in Girardi. If you remember my last video, you know the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol was on the list of worst weapons. Like I mentioned, the last video, Mad Milk is good for the team if there's no medics, or if the medic's occupied with something else. And Scout takes a lot of damage because he can give and receive a bunch of damage. It's Scout's job to be a dangerous nuisance. Being able to sustain himself in battle allows him to be more effective and efficient. Unlike something like the Candy Cane, on the other hand, is not good. It drops a small health pack, so effectively you should be immortal, right? Wrong. The Candy Cane is really not worth it because you take more damage from basically everything. And a bunch of people online are defending the Candy Cane, saying it's as good as Mad Milk, when it's clearly not. People say you could be a more effective team player with it. If you want to help your team, Mad Milk is strictly better. Engineer is a pretty useful dude with his fabled sentry gun. The sentry gun is no doubt a powerful asset and a crucial part of any good defense. Engineer is a very defensive class. He's a vital part of the team. Even the other buildings help, like the dispenser being able to heal teammates and give back ammo. They're really good when there's no medic on the team or the medic's occupied with something else. Teleporters help slower classes and more important classes get to the front lines quicker, but his sentry gun is the most powerful asset he brings to the team. But what happens when you make Engineer a little more offensive and a little more aggressive? The Gunslinger replaces the giant hefty sentry gun with a more portable mini-sentry. The Gunslinger's mini-sentry, despite being small, is a powerful device. While normal sentries take 530 metal to fully upgrade, the mini-sentry only takes 100. And you don't actually have to upgrade the mini-sentry. It allows Engineer to be more aggressive, which can give you the upper hand in 1v1s. An assistant or distraction, pairing a mini-sentry with Engineer's large variety of primaries, Engineer can be an absolute monster, especially when paired with the Frontier Justice, because the mini-sentry takes most enemies by surprise, finish them off most of the time. Yet a bunch of revenge crits. It allows Engineer to be more active instead of turtling. Because the mini-sentry costs less than a normal sentry, it allows you to more focus on the other buildings like the dispenser and teleporters. It also has a neat feature where if you hit an enemy 3 times in a row, you will gain a crit. It also gives you an extra 25 health, so yeah, it's pretty good. Everybody's favorite medical mercenary has a surprising amount of ways to defend himself. To keep the dream alive, you have to keep the team alive. To keep the team alive, you have to keep yourself alive. And to keep yourself alive, you have to use the Blitzauger. The Bloodsucker has been my favorite syringe gun since I started playing in 2020. The Bloodsucker's syringes might as well be filled with heroin because it's so satisfying connecting every syringe with your enemy's frail body, watching them crumble to the floor because they thought you were weak. The Bloodsucker gives Medic a chance to survive and fight back against any unwanted company that may want a piece of your ass. And who wouldn't? Medic is absolutely buff. Despite the meta favoring the Crusader crossbow, the Bloodsucker is a common pick up among the Medic mains, dishing out pretty good damage for a syringe gun, and isn't a complete piece of shit like the Overdose or Stock. As someone who plays Medic a lot, I am more than aware of my patients leaving me behind, and the Bloodsucker gives me a chance to live against the Sniper whose edible just kicked in, giving him godlike aim. 30 HP per second is nothing to scoff at, especially if you're in a pinch. The Medic isn't known for his high DPS. Well, this weapon doesn't grant you good DPS, but the syringes shoot out at a rate good enough to keep you alive against any foe who may want to throw hands. That's until you go through withdrawal. It's son of a bitch. See, those syringes might be filled with heroin, but you can still suffer the side effects. The Bloodsucker doesn't make you invincible, as some may think. Going against a heavy with the Bloodsucker will most definitely spell your doom. See, Heavy's minigun has more DPS than a Bloodsucker, and just because you can get 3 health per syringe does not mean the Heavy's going to not wreck your shit. The Bloodsucker can be good in tight situations, but that doesn't mean you're a god. You can die, and you will die if you think like that. Just be careful on how you use it, or if someone grants you crits or Uber, you can go on an absolute massacre. Let's play a little game of I Spy. I spy with my little eye a weapon that can make heavies cry. A weapon in the right hands can topple thousands of men, that can stop Uber pushes, drop medics in seconds, deny pushes, and decimate heavies. You may expect this weapon to be on a class like Pyro Demo Soldier. It's actually a revolver of the name of the Diamondback. Diamondback is the definition of overpower. You give Spy guaranteed crits for things he's already supposed to be doing. I'm surprised no one talks about this as much as they should. In the right hand, you can absolutely decimate teams worth of men. You might be wondering why I didn't pick any other guns like the Latron Z, which gives you extra cloak, or the Ambassador that gives you guaranteed crits on headshots, because I wanted to go the asshole route. Do I look like a person who would care about other people's happiness? No? Well, then you'd be correct. The Diamondback allows you to absolutely go on a massacres, if you're good enough, of course. Doing things a spy should be doing is, of course, broken, but who the hell cares? It's fun. Anything that grants you guaranteed crits is automatically favorite in my books. If there's one thing you should know about the Diamondback, it's the crits granted do a whopping 120 damage. 120 damage is nothing to scoff at. For 4 years now, Party Poop has been trying to get this thing nerfed just like any other spy weapon. As someone who doesn't play spy a lot, getting a backstab is rewarding, and the Diamondback makes it even more rewarding. Having a building finish sapping all the way across the map while you're fighting someone just to do a clean 120 damage to your opponent, dropping them instantly, is a feeling like no other. And the fact that you can walk around the corner and the enemy feels illegal, and probably should be illegal. Sniper is a very scary class to go up against. Being able to put down most classes in only 0.2 seconds and put heavy down in 2 headshots, which is obviously quite a problem for the slowest class in the game. Even the best of snipers can kill scouts pretty fast. But there are some times where a scout or heavy might get past you and get up in your face. So what do you do then? Well, you die. Or you compel your secondary and... Wait a minute, what the fuck is this? What in God's name am I supposed to do with this? I'm sorry, but the SMG kind of sucks, and the cleanest carbine isn't much better. Sniper without a doubt has some of the worst lineup of secondaries in the entire games, besides one item, which is obviously Girardi. Girardi takes the number 5 spot. When enemy is covered in Girardi, it will take guaranteed mini crits, and obviously it's pretty good because you can soak multiple enemies. Throwing it into a crowd of people could obviously benefit your team. Having everyone you fight take mini crits can obviously give your team an advantage, or give you the advantage against someone who dare stands against you. A popular combo is hitting someone with Girardi then pulling your melee out, and it can give you pretty good damage. But obviously the best combination for Girardi is pairing it with the Bushwhacker. Because the special thing with the Bushwhacker is every crit automatically turns into a normal crit, and as you can imagine, that's pretty powerful. So just throw Girardi into someone's face and smack them in the head with the Bushwhacker, and boom, crit. This is the only real sniper weapon that is definitively better than any other like it. Like, the sniper rifles, there is no definitive sniper rifle besides the Sydney Sleeper. Same thing with the melees, they're all viable. Girardi is just way better than all the secondaries. Either way, Girardi is a very powerful tool, so use it. What do you think of Heavy? What is the first thing you think about with Heavy? DPS, right? Heavy's had a rocky history when it comes to overpowered weapons. If you were around in 2011, you probably remember the Tommy Groover set. So Heavy, unlike his worst weapon, has a few broken weapons. Tell me, how do you play Heavy? Are you a more passive defensive player, protecting the final point and staying by the engineer's dispenser? Or are you like me, an offensive player who goes out on the battlefield with his trusty medics and absolutely destroys anyone he sees? So when picking Heavy's entry, I thought, what makes Heavy fun to play? Then it hit me. Crits. Lily, if you've played Heavy, you know how powerful and devastating his crits are. So what happens when you give him crits on kill? The killing gloves of Balkan is quite a funny item, and generally overpowered in my opinion, giving you guaranteed crits on kill, and as you can imagine, guaranteed crits on Heavy is quite scary. The fact that you can get guaranteed crits by killing someone with your melee is stupidly overpowered. What makes it even funnier is Valve didn't get rid of random crits on this weapon, so yes, you can get a random crit and then get guaranteed crits back. Here's a little fun analysis for you. You might all know that random crits are dictated by damage. The base chance of doing a random crit is 2%. The max percent you can do is 8% by doing 800 damage. However, melees are different. The base percent of a melee is 15%. It gets worse. You just wait. If you do 800 damage in the last few seconds, your melee has a 60% chance to crit. Add the fact that the killing gloves of boxing crit damage is 195, meaning you can one-shot all but 2 classes. So you can one-shot them with a random crit, and if their team's nearby, just mow them down and obliterate them. Crits on Heavy is extremely scary. Add Uber into the mix and you become absolutely unstoppable. Having an Uber Heavy with crits come at you, there's not much you can really do. You can go on absolute massacres and become basically unstoppable. The fact that Valve has never nerfed the killing gloves of boxing is honestly surprising, because if one unlucky spy gets knocked by your glove, that whole team is gonna feel your fury. It's no surprise that Soldier is a very tanky class. He can dish out ridiculous amounts of damage. He can also take a lot of damage because, well, people want to get rid of him as fast as they can. Soldier has a lot of weapons that helps him with health. Health bonuses, health regen, the works. Plus, a medic constantly sewed to his ass. But what if, God forbid, you don't have your own personal pocket medic? Either you need to get help, don't you? But that scout took the last health pack. But it looks like enemies are coming your way. What do you do in this situation? Well, it's quite simple actually. You die. Unless you have a specific rocket launcher. The black box is Soldier's best primary besides stock, functioning exactly the same as stock with the same stat. But there's something special about this rocket launcher. First off, you have a negative 25% clip size. So why is it on the list? Like I said, it's the same as stock with one less rocket. There's a little something that puts it on the list. Every time you deal damage to an enemy, you get 20 health back. That might not sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it can definitely help in a sticky situation. And I use the word sticky exclusively. No, 20 health can be the deciding factor between living or perishing horribly to a crit sticky because for some reason Gaben really hated you that day. Using the black box when being Ubered is pretty good as well, so when the Uber ends, you don't immediately die. In my opinion, it's worse than stock because of that one last rocket. Yes, it's one last rocket and it doesn't make a big difference, but the amount of times it would have killed someone if it wasn't for that one less rocket hurts. Especially with rocket jumping. That one less rocket can really affect how you rocket jump, especially if you're coming down and there's an enemy below you, and you need to defend yourself. And just attacking in general, you can feel that one less rocket, especially when you're in a tight pinch. Pyro is a very punishing class to play and play against. As a Pyro, your job is to be offensive, as Pyro's offensive class. So you need to be aggressive, but you can't run in blindly or you'll get punished. Being overconfident in a 1v1 or in general, you will most likely get punished. But on the other hand, you can also punish other classes like soldiers and demo for challenging your skill. But it's not just soldiers and demos you can punish. You can punish entire teams for being blind or just capping. Pyro has the most overpowered ability in the game, Air Blast. Air Blast is a very powerful tool. It's powerful enough to stop uber pushes, capping, and you can also stop a spy from backstabbing one of your teammates. You can do a lot of useful stuff, and if you're skilled enough, you can do stuff like this. So, with that being said, you probably expect me to put a weapon with Air Blast on it, like a greaser. Well, not quite. Pyro also has another powerful feature, arguably the most hated thing about Pyro, Afterburn. Pyro has a lot of weapons that can punish new players or overconfident players, specifically weapons that have Afterburn. In all 3 of Pyro's slots, he has weapons that can do Afterburn. In most cases, Pyro's Afterburn will secure kills that were just about to get away. As a Pyro main, I get a copious amount of joy seeing people raging in chat over Afterburn. I guess I'm being a little hypocritical because I absolutely hate the bleed effect. Pyro has a specific secondary that everyone hates, and I find peculiarly applicable, as Lazy Prepper would say. A weapon so feared, a weapon so heinous, so despicable, I might be cancelable for saying its name. Oh my god, it's the Flog! WM1 noob! No, it's not the Flog. It's the Scorch Shot. It's so evil. Yes, nothing can stand in my way. I am a god. Everywhere I go, it seems like the Scorch Shot gets shat on by the biggest names. Everyone hates the Scorch Shot, but me, ho 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 ho. To me, the Scorch Shot gives me so much dopamine every... But let's back up a bit. Now, the other flare guns might be more powerful than a Scorch Shot, but the Scorch Shot is like an amalgamation of the 2 others, mini critting against burning enemies and being able to blast jump. Also, being able to burn someone content away is more funny than you'd think. While crits are powerful on every weapon, they're especially devastating on the Scorch Shot. Look at these poor fools. What are they gonna do now? Your medic can't save you. Hide if you can. Another feature it has is one of my favorites, knockback. Sending someone to the moon is my favorite thing to do in this game. Well, second favorite thing. Knowing that I'm a Pyro main, you probably expect me to put a Pyro weapon as number 1. Well, no, it's actually my second main that takes the number 1 spot. Demoman is a very powerful class and easily puts out the most amount of damage in the shortest amount of time, and is easily the most powerful class in the game. I mean, stock Demoman can match stony men. Bringing crits into the equation, you can recreate Hiroshima with Demo. In the words of Lazy Prepper, stock Demo is a marvel of game design. But what happens when we replace your damage and pure effectiveness with brain dead fun? So switch that sticky bomb launcher, equip the Titana, let that cannon's fuse blow, and ascend to the skies. The loose cannon takes the number 1 spot. I love double donks. The feeling of launching someone across the sky just for them to die from falling damage is the funniest thing you'll ever encounter in this game. And oh my, hearing that sound. Everyone who's ever talked about the loose cannon always talks about how satisfying the sound of a double donk is. A feature of the loose cannon is a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that you can cannon jump. Cannon jumping is arguably more difficult to master than sticky or rocket jumping because it's very inconsistent. But god is it rewarding. Now clearly this is the worst grenade launches out of Demo's primaries, but who cares, it's dumb fun. A lot more than the lock and load and the overused iron deficiency bomber. You may say Demo is all about damage. Shut up. Why don't you get this by now? With the loose cannon, you can turn your brain off. You don't need to think about strategy or thinking at all. All you need to do is time the cannon's fuse into a group of people, and boom, double donk. Need I say more? Shut brain off, double donk, boom, good ass weapon. Oh, so you thought I was done there? No, pairing the loose cannon with the tide turners, you can become a horrifying nuisance, airstriking any poor fool down below. Making it very funny when some black Scottish dude falls out of the air, killing you almost instantly, or throwing you across the map. Which is obviously the funniest thing to do with this weapon, and where most of the fun comes from. So next time you boot TF2 up, instead of using the fabled grenade launcher, why don't you switch it off and equip the loose cannon? The loose cannon shouldn't be used as a replacement as a grenade launcher, more as a side grade for dumb fun. Trying to use it as the normal grenade launcher, 1, is not going to be fun, and 2, is going to get you killed. So just use a little common sense, and don't charge the heavy with your loose cannon if you want to live to tell the tale. And that was the video. Screen Fortress is next month, which I'm excited for, so that's something. Hopefully nothing goes awry this time like the last 3 years. But if you enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down what you want me to see you do next. Even though I don't read the comments, but, you know, it's something. Yeah, subscribe.
Now get out.
Is it really that time again? My favorite time of year. It's spooky season, which means a spooky video is ordered to be made. Easter eggs have been in video games for a very long time, since the Atari 2600. Throughout the years, developers have been hiding all different types of Easter eggs. They've gotten more tricky and more hidden, but sometimes developers add Easter eggs to spook the player or punish anyone who snoops around anywhere they're not supposed to be. And sometimes Easter eggs they add are downright bone-chilling and even scary. Most of these creepy Easter eggs are not even horror games. Most of the time, they're in fact in normal kids games. So I am here today to count down the top 7 scariest video game Easter eggs. So get your bowl of candy and your pumpkin spice latte as we dive in. Alright, you already know the shtick by now. Go down and hit the like button and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. More than you think, and it's free. It only takes 5 seconds to do. And share this video with anyone you can. Your friend, your family, people you meet while going trick-or-treating, anyone. It really helps a lot. With that being said, on to the countdown. Goat Simulator, Slender Goat. Goat Simulator is a game that's exactly as it sounds. It's a simulator where you play as a goat, being released on April 1st, 2014, so obviously it's a joke, not much else to really discuss. So why is it on the list? Well, Goat Simulator is an open world game, so in an open world game, what do you do but, you know, explore? And there's a vast variety of places to go and see. There's cities, suburban neighborhoods, and schools, and a lot more. But one place you probably wouldn't expect to stumble upon is the graveyard. The graveyard by itself is already kind of creepy, but what lurks deep inside the graveyard is what makes this list. Venture into the middle of the graveyard, you'll find this horrific looking creature. This is the Slender Goat. A clear reference to the infamous Slender Man. This disgusting thing seems to be the buff goat model, except all of its limbs been contorted to disgusting shapes. Now, it actually can't kill you because, well, you can't die in Goat Simulator, but it can still fling you across the map. So avoiding the Slender Goat would be in your best interest. This Easter egg is definitely creepy, especially if you're not expecting it. In fact, there's a mod for Goat Simulator where Slender Goat will constantly be following you, making it a lot more terrifying. But this is only the beginning. Star Fox, Out of This Dimension. Star Fox is a beloved Super Nintendo game from 1993, and is the worst character in Smash. If you play Fox, I hate you. In Star Fox, you play as Fox McCloud, flying through space doing whatever space foxes do. I don't know, I've never been enthralled with Star Fox. The game is described on Wikipedia as a riddle shooter, whatever that means. But the TLDR of Star Fox is you travel through worlds shooting things that appear and other things too. If you could tell, I know absolutely nothing about Star Fox, so why am I talking about it? I don't know, let's get into the Easter egg already. Out of This Dimension is a strange and trippy place found near the Latar system. In order to access this dimension, you have to go through the Astral Belt level. When entering the level, you have to wait and seek out asteroids. Now, there's a lot of asteroids, so you might be thinking it's kind of hard to do that, but these asteroids are far bigger than the normal ones, so it won't be too hard to spot. After destroying the 2 asteroids, this bird flies towards you. Instead of flying away from it, fly towards it. Then you'll be taken back to the level select screen. Then you'll be sent to an unlocked level. Entering the level, you will find Out of This Dimension. Escaping this dimension is impossible. It's an infinite level. The only way to escape is to die. Out of this dimension is a creepy, ominous place filled with wavy planets and random triggered events. Before entering the level, the text implies that Star Fox has disappeared, doomed to fly endlessly through space. No end in sight. Nicktoon, Attack of the Tribots, Mr. Huggles. Back in the early 2000s, Nicktoons released a bunch of video games filled with their characters. Most of them were crossovers between the most popular characters at the time, and there were quite a few of them. These were mostly action platformers for kids. Basic plot of the game was toys attack Nicktoon heroes and you have to stop them. But one of the enemies you fight is named Mr. Huggles, this little pink teddy bear. So you'd think, how creepy could this thing be? But Mr. Huggles is hiding something in plain sight. One of the pieces of level design you can find is Mr. Huggles' box. At first glance, nothing seems out of the ordinary. That's until you flip the image upside down and read what it says. I'll hug you and kill you. You'll never sleep again. I'll kill your parents. Fantastic. Love when this shit is added to kids' game. Totally. No wonder why Gen Z is so messed up. Actually, it's probably from whatever the fuck this is. Sonic CD, fun is infinite. Sonic CD is a game most Sonic fans would consider their favorite, and I would agree. I'm not much of a Sonic fan, but I have played Sonic CD, and it's pretty fun. Speaking of fun, some would say it's infinite when it comes to Sega Enterprises. Sega's is one of those companies that likes hiding Easter eggs in its games. They have a long history of adding strange Easter eggs into their game, however, easily the strangest being in Sonic CD. In most Sonic games, you can access the sound testing if you enter the right string of buttons. Through the sound testing, you can discover a bunch of Easter eggs Sega hid in Sonic CD. You can get some pretty neat stuff when entering certain codes, but you can also get a certain image. An image that scared the kids in the 90s. Only the bravest kids would dare enter the code. Of course, there were some kids who were skeptical, and as the old saying goes, curiosity killed the cat. And what they found was sickening, to say the least. So, some felt brave and entered the code. 46, 12, 25, and was greeted to Now, did I make that dramatic? Of course I did. I did it on purpose. Don't be a dumbass. I made a whole video about this. In fact, it was the first Halloween video I made. Don't go watch it, because it's horrendous. It's terrible and I hate you if you watch it. In the video I explained the backstory of this weird ass image found in Sonic CD. At first glance, it could be a really creepy image, especially to younger kids. After making my original video about Sonic CD, for some reason, Majin made a comeback in the form of Renee Funkin for some ungodly reason. Honestly, it's pretty cool that this character gets some recognition in the first place. Now, as I did mention, I did make a video about it, so if you want more information about that, don't go watch it. I just couldn't leave it off the list. Black Mesa, Tarman. Black Mesa is an impressive remake of the original Half-Life from 1998, upgrading the graphics significantly from the Gold Source engine to the Source engine. Being released in 2020, but being in development for 15 years. As someone who wasn't a big fan of Half-Life 1, but was a big fan of Half-Life 2, Black Mesa has been on my wish list for a long time, and it looks phenomenal. That's not why it's on the list, obviously. This is the top 10 scariest Easter eggs. So what possible creepy Easter egg could be in Black Mesa besides Mr. Six from Six Flags hidden in one of the crate textures? Well, the only way I could find this Easter egg or found out about it is from an odd header. Pretty cool dude, you should go check him out. And one of the levels you can find this turret. Not really much here, but if you go into development console and remove it and look underneath it, you can find this. This is Tarman. Tarman is from the 1985 zombie flick Return of the Living Dead. Now, I would ask why Tarman is in Half-Life, but then I remembered Half-Life has zombies, so it kind of fits Tarman. Tarman has legitimately a creepy design, mostly due to the beady little eyes. In motion, it looks so much more creepy, dude. What makes Tarman even creepier than other zombies is most of the zombies in Return of the Living Dead is actually intelligent, as seen in this scene where he uses a chain to rip a door down of a closet where someone's hiding. Intelligent zombies are the worst type of zombies, cause they gonna get you. Xbox, creepy sounds. I grew up playing a lot of different consoles. There was no one console I stuck to. I played the PlayStation 2, the PSP, a Nintendo Wii, a Nintendo DS, and the original Xbox. I still consider the original Xbox one of my favorite game consoles of all time. Despite a lot of people not particularly enjoying the original Xbox, me and my siblings did. There's still a bunch of really good games on the original Xbox, but one of the most nostalgic parts of the original Xbox was definitely the home screen, that familiar neon green aesthetic. But years later, I found out about something about the original Xbox, something that's kind of creepy about it, that I never experienced personally. If you leave the Xbox running for a little bit, you'll eventually start hearing some sounds, some pretty unnerving sounds. First it'll start with a low hum, occasionally picking up the volume. Then eventually you'll hear this weird robotic voice, which is actually, according to Microsoft, a public domain NASA transmission just edited. Yeah, Microsoft, that doesn't make it any less creepy. Kinda hard to understand why Microsoft thought this would be okay to put in a console. Like, what is the purpose behind this? Either way, this sound will probably haunt children from the early 2000s and nightmares for years to come. Minecraft Disc 11 and 13. Minecraft is a game I kinda hate, but not really. I have a long and personal history with Minecraft like most YouTubers. I grew up watching and playing Minecraft. But when Minecraft blew up again on YouTube around 2019, that's when I kind of found off the Minecraft community. I don't remember enjoying Minecraft as much as my siblings did. The major update that I even remember is the one where they added poison-tipped arrows. But I still enjoyed Minecraft, especially playing with my siblings. My older brother would make maps for us to play, stuff like Murder Mystery and Five Nights at Freddy's map like everyone did. We would also download all the maps we could find on these weird apps that would just take maps from Planet Minecraft and shit and put them on mobile. It was weird. But throughout these happy memories, something lurks deep below the surface. Something that me and my siblings were stupidly afraid of. Especially my younger brother. You should know what I'm talking about if you were around in 2015. That's where it was a big buzz. Disc 11 and 13. Disc 11 and 13 are still mysteries to this day, I think. I told you, I haven't been in Minecraft for a while. Matt Pat probably made a video about it. Listening to Disc 11 and 13, you'll hear a bunch of creepy noises. Unlike the rest of the music disc, there's no music here. Just footsteps and breathing, or a very low hum. I don't know if there's even been an explanation by Mojang, nor do I think they'll ever give an explanation. It's very creepy audio to listen to, especially at nighttime. I'm expecting this to be on the next Gen Z childhood trauma iceberg. Don't let me down. Well, that was the end of the video. I made this video in September, so I don't know how October's going. I usually make all my October videos in September so I can play Scream Fortress all month. I'm not really good at making these outros, so yeah. Anyway, leave a like, subscribe, comment down when you let me see next. I probably won't respond because I don't look at the comments much. Oh yeah, share this video with everyone you can and everyone you know. Now get out! Obviously, I'm not breaking the mold by talking about indie horror games, or as most know them today, mascot horror games. But I have some interesting opinions about them. Personally, I really don't like modern indie horror games, or indie horror games in general. Yeah, I understand there are some good ones out there, but most of them are pretty shite. Just thrown onto Steam for a quick buck, or thrown onto games you'll to spend forever on the back pages. 9 times out of 10, most indie horror games you'll play is just a waste of time, and add nothing to the horror game scene. Most of them are just filler. Some of them are boring, some of them are unfinished and broken, and there are some of them so unbelievably atrocious they are the source of jokes for most dying gameplay channels. And no, I'm not going to be talking about Gone of Ban. Take that as the one and only time I'll talk about that pile of shit. No, I'm going to be talking about the indie horror games I have a personal history with, that I grew up with in a sense. I've talked about one of these games before, except my opinions about it have done a complete 180, but I'll get to my opinion when the time comes. Indie horror games have had a noticeable decline in quality in recent times, and I thought I'd look back at the few that were quite popular at their own time periods, but who knows what games I'm talking about. Hey dumbass, you already spoiled it in the thumbnail. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Either way, I have some interesting opinions on these games, so enough stalling, let's get into the good, bad, and ugly of indie horror games. But before we begin, you already know the shtick. Go down and hit the like and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot, more than you would think. It's free and it only takes 5 seconds to do. With that being said, on to the video. Who remembers Furbies? Well, Furbies absolutely took over the early 2000s. In fact, the first year of production it sold 1.8 million units, and in the following year sold 14 million units. So it's safe to say most 90s kids and early 2000s kids owned a Furby, or at least know what a Furby is. Furbies were supposed to be these little pets in the same sense of the Tamagotchis, except it wasn't digital. All these types of pet things popped up around the time in the early 2000s and were quite popular, but the Furbies were different. Not long after the Furbies were released, they gained a bit of a reputation. Some claimed the Furbies would turn evil, or they would glitch out in scary ways. And with every iteration of the Furby, that evil trait would carry over. New glitches would occur, making them more aggressive, and people simply didn't know why. And it was that idea that inspired a little game called Tattletale. Tattletale is a prime example of what an indie horror game should be. It's like how I'm a prime example of why you shouldn't get near chemicals, because they explode. Oh hey, some chemicals, I do hope it doesn't explode. I really should have thought that through. Probably. What the hell? Who said that? I said it. Oh, is it one of those stories? I get it. You're the evil voice in my head due to a massive trauma. Kinda cheesy, especially due to it being Halloween. I guess you could say it's the long Halloween.
Shh, you wanna get sued?
Well, I think I have to change the title of the video from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Indie Horror Game to just The Bad Indie Horror Games. I really can't say a game that made me go through a terrible accident a good game. No, you can't. Why not? I think it's a pretty valid reason. You have to be fair. Fair? You gotta finish it. It's not about what you want. It's about what's fair. Right. Fair. Fair. Good side! Well, that was slightly anticlimactic. Tattletale's a game that's kinda hard to tackle when reviewing. There's just so much stuff to deal with and content to discuss. I guess we could start from the release of Tattletale. Tattletale was first released to Steam on December 28th, 2016 to relative success. Tattletale was made for YouTube. It was always meant to be one of those games that bigger YouTubers would pick up, and in return, more viewers would download the game. And you know, that's a good business strategy, especially because Tattletale's only $5, which is a pretty good price for a little horror game like this. At the end of the day, business strategy doesn't matter. You gotta take a chance, roll the dice, risk it all, go big or go home. Tattletale at its most basic level is a pretty simple little horror game. It's not complex, there's no big overarching story. And of course, there are a few lore bits here and there. But it's not something like FNAF, where basically the whole franchise is lore, with the gameplay being an afterthought. Like, who plays FNAF games anymore? Nah, it's all about the lore. There are very few real buttons you need to press in order to play the game, unlike most modern mascot horror games, or indie horror games, whatever you want to call them. So enough dilly-daddling, let's get into the gameplay of Tattletale. The very basic plot of Tattletale is that you, the player, is actually a little kid who opens their gifts 5 days before Christmas. Turns out your parents got you exactly what you wanted for Christmas, a talking baby Tattletale. But turns out, things don't go as planned. There's something watching and waiting to get you, hidden in the dark. If it wasn't obvious enough, it's very clearly inspired by the Furby, as I did give a brief history of it. Yes, that actually had a purpose, obviously. Tattletale is a game where you do a bunch of tasks throughout the night. I guess you could call it a 5 nights at Tattletale's. Yes, there are 5 nights leading into Christmas. Somehow the parents never discover the fact that you open your gifts 5 days before Christmas. Night 1 is where it all begins, 5 days before Christmas. This is where you sneak down to the basement and open your present, revealing a Tattletale. The Tattletale, upon being released from its plastic and cardboard prison, demands to be fed and groomed. In game lore, it's suggested that Tattletales are both needy and social creatures. Throughout the night, you have to keep track of its batteries. You also have to feed them and groom them, or
Brush me! Give me a treat!
Constantly throughout the game. And you better do it quick, because this can attract unwanted attention. Do all your tasks for the night, go back downstairs, put Tattletale away, then go back to your room. Night 2 is where it gets more interesting. Waking up, you hear a mysterious sound. So what do you do like any other sane child protagonist would do? Go down and investigate. Turns out to just be your tattletale in the washing machine. But close to the washing machine, you can find this abomination. This is Mama, the main antagonist of Tattletale. And this is what you'll be hiding from for most of the game. Mama is actually a pretty good idea as an antagonist. It's the only real idea that would make sense to be an antagonist for a game like this. Mama makes her intentions very clear right off the bat after doing your normal task. But before that, she tells you a story.
The children thought that Mama would never find them as long as she couldn't see them. Turn the page. But Mama could still hear the children. The pitter-patter of their little feet led Mama right to them. Turn the page. Then Mama found the children, every last one, and put them right back to bed.
It's not hard to tell something's up with Mama. Mama has some sort of past that will be revealed as you play the game more. Tattletale is pretty good at building atmosphere, and it uses it as its main horror element. Because the jump scares aren't very, scary. But they don't necessarily need to be. Now let me talk about the mechanics. Mama is attracted to noise, and you see that flashlight in your hand? Well, in order to keep that flashlight lit, you have to shake it, and shaking it causes noise, alerting Mama. Plus, the Tattletales also alert Mama by doing...
Give me a treat!
So doing your task fast will be the key to your survival throughout the 5 nights. Night 3 is where it gets even more interesting. Collecting your Tattletale, you will be alerted outside by what sounds like another Tattletale. Going into the garage, you'll find, well, another Tattletale. But this Tattletale isn't a demanding little shit like the one you hold. No, it wants to play hide and seek. So instead of doing your normal task this night, you have to play hide and seek with it. But it's not as straightforward as it would sound. In between the sequence sections, you have a bit of downtime, and in that downtime, Mama will be hunting you down. So you have to do the same thing you've been doing and keep Mama away from you until the time it takes. Then you can go seeking for that Tattletale, where you are immune to dying. This goes on for a while. Eventually you do get through the night and you can move on to the next night. Well, actually you can't, because I forgot to mention the secret lore of this game. Finding the Tattletale for the last time, you will receive a VHS tape. Going to your bedroom and putting it into VCR, you will get this. I think this is live camera feed for a commercial set, and as time progresses, bodies start appearing in the background. So clearly Mama isn't a nice owl type thing. So your Mama isn't defective, all Mamas are. I'm pretty sure the secret lore of this game was they would discontinue Mama because they were killing people. If I do recall from 2016 and 17 when this game was big. Night 4 or Christmas Eve is a bit odd when you first start. You'll probably notice Tattletale is creepily looking at you, illuminated only by your flashlight, so you could probably tell something's off right away. After bringing Tattletale downstairs to the basement, you'll find 2 more Tattletales that definitely weren't there before. After placing Tattletale on his charging port, the Tattletales will task you with finding another friend in the Christmas tree. On the way there, you have to avoid being caught by Mama, like always. After returning to the basement with the other Tattletale in hand, you are tasked with finding the other Tattletale in the garage. After getting the final friend, you must go back upstairs and find some cupcakes, presumably for all the Tattletales to eat. Retrieving the cupcakes, you have to put them on the red rug, go back upstairs and find some Christmas lights, then bring them on the red rug as well. Then they task you with getting candles from the kitchen counter, and it's at this point you could probably tell these things are planning something. With the candles in hand, your task is going back to the basement, and you'll find a satanic circle. The Tattletales are performing a ritual. After placing the final Tattletale in its area, you have to light all the candles. Then the ritual begins, and you have to survive it. But oh no, Mama took the candles, which means you have to go and retrieve them. And they're not in the same areas. They are in different places, so you actually have to look for them. After retrieving all the candles, you must put them back and commence the ritual. You then have to banish Mama by destroying the tape. After doing so, you are tasked with going back upstairs and going to bed, waiting for Christmas morning. On Christmas morning, there's only one task to do: open your present. Now you can go explore the house freely in the daytime, getting to notice every last detail. But after that, you go to the tree. Weirdly, your parents are absent, but that doesn't stop you. You go over and open your present, and inside, the Tattletale box. You are then jump scared by Mama, and that's how the game ends. Now there was free DLC for Tattletale, but I'm not going to discuss that because that's a whole different thing. Tattletale isn't a long game at all. You can beat it within an hour. And I'm not saying Tattletale's a perfect game. Obviously there's some glaring issues with it. but it's a pretty decent horror game and is far better than anything being put out nowadays. It is most certainly better than the next game we're going to be talking about. For a $5 game, Tattletale is worth the price in my opinion. And it's a good little horror game for the holidays, and I would certainly recommend it. Tattletale is one of those games right off the bat you'll know if you like it or not, and personally I do, and it's much better than anything being released in the last few years. Now it's time to remove these band-aids. It can't be that bad, maybe a few scars. I mean, it wasn't that big of an explosion, right? I'm sure it's fine. Look at my face! My life is ruined. What am I supposed to do now? I'm scheduled to continue my Halloween video. I'm supposed to be talking about Hello Neighbor next. But how when I look like this? Don't worry about it. Let me handle it. Let you handle it? How are you supposed to handle it? You look just as bad as me, if not worse. Half my face looks like blue mashed potatoes. Trust me, I'll show you. Hello Neighbor is the definition of missed potential. Hello Neighbor Alpha 1 had so many things going for it. It was legitimately impressive. It had a good balance of puzzles and mystery. One thing that the full release simply did not. So much of Hello Neighbor's full release just confuses me. We had a good thing going. So how did I stumble so severely near the finish line? Hello Neighbor is nothing short of a disaster, a fall from grace as some would say. No matter how you describe it, Hello Neighbor is a testament to how horribly a company can fail, despite beginnings looking promising. It's also $30 goddamn on Steam. I'm sorry, you have to be pretty ballsy to release a game on Steam when it's in such a terrible state. And don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as bad as Hello Neighbor 2. Unlike Hello Neighbor 2, Hello Neighbor 1 wasn't released in a terrible state where it's unfinished. It was released in a terrible state where the game made absolutely no sense. Most of the puzzles are so vague. What hurts Hello Neighbor the most is how much they took out of the other alphas. A lot of Hello Neighbor 1 seems so directionless. Most of the acts don't flow into each other, they all seem like they're from different games. The main draw of Hello Neighbor was how advanced the neighbor's AI was, learning from your mistakes and reacting accordingly. And in the alphas that was the case, and obviously as more alphas came out, his AI got better. So where did that all go in the final release? His AI just sucks! He constantly gets stuck on stuff. Hello Neighbor is an actual mental challenge to get through. It's so disorganized. It feels like Tiny Build just threw it together. Every idea feels like the developers threw something at the board and see if it would stick. None of them sticked, so Tiny Build just threw whatever they had lying around to a $30 game and fucking released it. The best way I can describe Hello Neighbor is when you have nothing to eat at home, so you throw everything you have in the pantry and see if it works. And in this case, it never does. The story makes somehow even less sense. I'll talk about the story before I get into the gameplay, just so you can tell how bad this game really is, not just story-wise, but everything-wise. So what is the story? Well, it's kinda hard to discern. The most obvious thing to get out of the way is the fact that you're trying to get into the basement. We've been trying to do this since Alpha 1. And I'll say it's a good premise. Not many horror games were doing it at the time, so it was original. At a time where the market became well oversaturated, with unoriginal junk. Presumably what's behind the basement door was kind of a mystery for the longest time. Until, well, Game Theory came along and theorized it was Mr. Peterson's, yes that's the neighbor's name, wife and child, or random woman and a child. Whatever, Game Theory's never right about anything. The whole reason why we sneak around this guy's house and solve puzzles is to find out what's behind the door and save the child. That's how it's always been until the full release. I think it's a good story plot because of the mystery of what's behind the basement door, because it incentivizes you to actually want to play and see what's behind the door. The allure of a mystery is what keeps players hooked into the game. If you stumble that idea by revealing it too quickly, which is what Hello Neighbor did, there's no incentive to keep playing if you already know what the mystery is. Hello Neighbor revealed what's behind the basement door in Act 1 of 4. So what's even the point to keep playing? And because I'm superior in every way to the developers, I'm not gonna spoil what's down in the basement, because if you're watching this video, you probably only know what's there, but just in case you don't. And Miles' story spoilers, the last 2 acts are dreams, so take of that as you will. There's 4 different acts you have to go through, and each act the house gets more and more dreamlike, which has been a plot point since Alpha 1. The sheer magnitude of the neighbor's house is what kept players interested, but the problem is, unlike the other alphas with the big houses, the full full release's big house is confusing beyond comprehension. There are absolutely no indications where you need to go or how you need to solve a puzzle. As soon as you start the game, you are put right in front of the neighbor's house and are expected to know what to do right off the bat. The gameplay is shit. Countless bugs and glitches, incohesive level design, the neighbor seeming to know where you are at every point. All of this combined just makes it very mentally draining to get through. Hello Neighbor is not a good game if that wasn't clear already. The decisions that developers made on certain aspects of the gameplay make my brain physically hurt. Alpha 1 has gameplay that is buttery smooth and actually unnerving and creepy. What happened? What did Tiny Build do? They had such good gameplay with Alpha 1. If they kept the same gameplay and got rid of all the unnecessary vague puzzles, I bet every reviewer would be singing a completely different tune. Going back to the neighbor's AI, you can tell how much they downgraded it. In Alpha 1, he used to put bear traps in front of windows and board them up. And in the full release, he just places bear traps wherever he wants. In Alpha 1, if you get caught, it would generally make the gameplay harder. In the full release of Hello Neighbor, however, getting caught really doesn't do anything to your playthrough. It doesn't get harder. In fact, there are some cases where getting caught is more beneficial. But somehow it gets even worse. As I mentioned before, the map is nonsensical. I forgot to mention how completely impossible the design is. It's so alien, it feels like an AI tried to recreate what a mansion would look like. And somehow there's a roller coaster? What was the thought process behind this? Also, calling this a stealth horror game is a joke. The neighbor's AI is so bad they can't even navigate their own home. Puzzles are so vague that most of them actually make no sense unless you look it up. Like hitting this apple painting to open up this passageway. What about the moon and sun doors? What about waiting for this block of ice to thaw out? What's that? You don't like puzzles that make no sense? Too bad, welcome to Hello Neighbor. Hello Neighbor is a complete disaster in every sense of the word. Oh, by the way, did you know this is a horror game? This is not scary, not in the slightest. For those who don't know anything about me, I hate new horror games. These kid-friendly type horror games, or whatever people call them. Horror games aren't supposed to be kid-friendly. They're supposed to be scary. They're called horror games. I hate Hello Neighbor, and I hate most of these types of games, if that wasn't clear enough for my rambling. The jump scare is not scary, nor will it make you jump. It's not really a jump scare, it's more of a game over screen. Except it's not a game over, because you reset right in front of the house. You also move faster than a neighbor, so there's no chance of him catching you, unless you're stupid and you get stuck on something. Which you're not stupid, because you get stuck on nothing most of the time. This game is beyond fixing, and there's no way I can ever compliment this mess. It's atrocious, it's broken, and the graphics are quite ugly. Hello Neighbor got severely downgraded from the alphas. Hello Neighbor had so much promise, but when Tiny Build bought Dynamic Pixels, I feel like they shifted away from being a horror game to being more marketing friendly. Nothing screams this more clearly than the TV show they wanted MatPat to study every frame of. At the end of the day, Hello Neighbor is bad. Like, real bad. There's no redeeming features to Hello Neighbor. In fact, they repeated the cycle with Hello Neighbor 2, where the alphas looked better and played better than the actual full release. It seems like Tiny Build and Dynamic Pixels really didn't know what they wanted with this game, and it shows. Hello Neighbor is nothing but a dumpster fire, and the sequel Hello Neighbor 2 is not much better, and it deserves its horrible reputation. Our game's next on the list. Another bad game. We have to flip for it, remember? I'm done with the flipping thing. We're not doing it this time. This game is just plain old bad. You have to flip the coin. It's what's fair. It's not about what you want. It's about what's fair. It can't be rigged in one game's favor. It doesn't matter what's not fair. It's my channel, and I'm gonna do what I want, just like I've been doing for the last 7 goddamn years. You can't decide with a coin. No, you can't decide without it. I can decide perfectly fine on my own. I don't need some stupid gimmick to decide whether or not Final Fantasy is a bad game. And I certainly don't need this coin. No! What did you do? I did what was necessary to continue this video. Getting rid of you. You need me! You're supposed to be me. You should know. I don't need anyone. You're nothing without me. I'm your reason, your wit, your confidence, your fairness. Who needs all that? By the way, do yourself a favor and don't come back.
Guilty.
Well, now that's all taken care of, let's get into my modern opinions of Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm gonna start right off the bat by saying my last review of Five Nights at Freddy's I did, I share little to no opinions. Mostly because it was almost made a year ago, and a lot of things happened in a year. A lot of painful things happen in a year. In fact, I only made that video mostly positive because I didn't want to piss off the FNAF community. But I generally don't care anymore. Like, what in God's name is a mimic? I want to keep why I don't like Five Nights at Freddy's to a minimum because there's not much to talk about. Somehow I stretched the game that takes less than an hour to complete into a 21-minute video. Let's start with things I mentioned last time when I reviewed Five Nights at Freddy's. In the original video, I did say the gameplay was boring but replayable, so I gave it a pass. Fun fact, I have not played it ever since that video, so that really didn't hold up at all. There's only so many times you can replay the same game before it gets boring, especially a game as repetitive and slow. And most of the footage you're watching right now is old footage from when I recorded it last year. One problem I had that I didn't bring up is the main mechanic of Five Nights at Freddy's. Problems with the two main enemies that you're gonna be primarily facing is that they use the primary defense, the doors. The problem with the doors is Bonnie and Chica are not difficult in the slightest. The only real difficult enemies is Freddy and Foxy, which both require your attention. Bonnie and Chica, however, as soon as they get to your door, shut the door on them, and they'll be gone in a few seconds. It's not hard, it's just boring. The balancing between Bonnie and Chica, Freddy and Foxy is basically non-existent. In fact, it seems like Freddy and Foxy appear more than Bonnie and Chica do. Another thing I played up too much in the original video was the trailer. Why did I think praising it so much was a good idea? No wonder why I only got 28 views on it. Most of my points that I put in there were put in there to draw time out, so I'm not going to be talking about anything else from that video. What's something else that I discovered about Five Nights at Freddy's that I didn't like? Looking at the footage that I recorded about a year ago and recording Five Nights at Freddy's 3's footage for the Phantom Challenge, FNAF's gameplay is just slow. No one is going to convince me that what I'm showing on screen right now is compelling. It's always been kind of weird to me how no one's pointed this out, like, no one ever thought, oh hey, this is kind of boring. Another thing I noticed is the atmosphere isn't as good as I remember it to be. I'm not knocking Scott, it was his first horror game. I remember some of the camera frames being kind of creepy, and looking at them now, they kind of look just goofy. There are stuff I do like about Five Nights at Freddy's. Without Five Nights at Freddy's, I probably wouldn't be the person I am today. That could either be a good or bad thing, depending on how you view me. I will give credit to Scott. Five Nights at Freddy's models and characters look phenomenal. Scott knows how to model stuff well. If you look at his previous work, like The Desolate Hope, he's really good at what he does. But I don't think it's a coincidence that he's never been good at making gameplay. The real FNAF game that I would consider good is FNAF 2, and even I have some problems with that one. I've beaten every FNAF game up until FNAF 6. After FNAF 6, that's when the series went downhill. Fuck you, Security Breach. If you couldn't tell, I'm kind of running out of things to talk about with FNAF. There's just not much substance here to talk about. Unlike something like Hello Neighbor or Tattletale, Hello Neighbor is such a pile of shit I could talk about for a whole 30-minute video. Tattletale was good and it has substance to it. It had things to talk about. FNAF is just so plain and bare and there's not much to discuss. Now, Five Nights at Freddy's isn't as bad as something like Hello Neighbor. That's why it's in the ugly category and not the bad category. It's not a buggy mess. It's not something like Tattletale where it's fleshed out. In Tattletale, there's a vast variety of tasks and things to do, plus free DLC. Now, I will give a little more credit to Scott. This was the first Five Nights game, so obviously it wasn't going to be perfect. And it's far better than the Security Breach. If I ever do a video on Security Breach, expect it to be a hour-long video of me saying nothing but how shit it really is. God, that game sucks so much. I think I said enough about Five Nights at Freddy's. Well, today was certainly an adventure. I went through a chemical accident. I killed my conscience. Subscribe.
Now get out. Hey you may be wondering, why do I sound like ass? Well, it's because this stupid piece of shit wanted to break on me when I wanted to start recording. And I was almost done with the script. I'm in fact using my Kindle to record this, and I don't know if I'll be able to get a microphone anytime soon. So I hope that doesn't deter you from watching this video. So I guess try to ignore the bad quality, and enjoy. Sorry. About a year ago, I made a video named the top 7 worst Mario enemies, and now I'm here with the top 7 best Mario enemies. And ever since last time, it seems Bowser's gotten quite good at picking out enemies. Alright Bowser, let's see what you've got. Ah, much better.
Seems like Bowser wised up a bit since last time I made a list like this one. It's sure to be more interesting. Over the last 42 years of Mario's pitiful existence, he's encountered quite a few baddies. And I guess enemies too. I don't know, I'm just in it for Luigi's hot bod. Like last time, I have a few rules. The enemies must be in mainline Mario games, so no RPGs or spin-offs, and only one enemy type, so no variants. But before we begin, go down and hit the like button and subscribe button. Helps them out a lot more than you think. It's free and only takes 5 seconds to do. And share this video with anyone, everyone. Also, I'm trying to hit 100 subs by the end of the year, so if you can help with that, you know, subscribe. That would really help. My goal is to eventually hit 100k, eventually. With that being said, on to the countdown. Super Mario World was a pretty good game and introduced a fair few new enemies, and a lot of them have been lost to time, never appearing in another Mario game, maybe besides 1 or 2 more games. One of these enemies make the list. Throughout the years, Bowser has introduced multiple different types of Koopa variants. There's been Koopas that fly, Koopas that have spikes, Koopas that have read the Unabomber's manifesto, and finally there's Koopas that play sports. The charging chucks, despite looking somewhat simple and unthreatening, are quite useful to Bowser's army. One of the reasons being that they have ranged attacks in the form of footballs that they can throw at you, just like a hammer bro. Which means you have the time when you jump on them. Also, another thing that makes them useful is the fact that they're basically mini-bosses. They take 3 hits to kill compared to the normal, 1 hit. The primary attacks, as the name implies, they charge at you quite quickly. Of course, it's not the Demo Knight charge, but it's still enough to keep you on your toes. There's also a fair few variety of them, one of them spawning multiple charging chucks. There's also this other one called the Clapping Chuck, which is just a charging chuck but claps upwards, which obviously if you mistime your jump can hit you. So when encountering a charging chuck, approach with caution. Like I mentioned in the last entry, there's a lot of Koopa variants, but the Koopas are made of flesh and bones, making them killable quite easily. So what happens if we replace flesh and bones with metal and wire? What if Bowser mechanized them? The Mecha Koopa at first glance doesn't seem like it would be very useful of an enemy, but looks can be deceiving. Just look at me. Mecha Koopas don't seem very intimidating. They're just like any other enemy. You can jump on them and they're dead. Except no, if you jump on them, they unwind and only a few seconds later they get back up. Now, they're not completely invincible. You can freeze them and throw them at the wall and kill them with a Starman, and basically anything else that would kill almost any other basic enemy besides jumping on them, which I guess is a plus. You can also throw them at each other by picking them up, and that's not why they're on the list. It's actually the variants that put them on the list. In Mario Maker 2, there's a feature if you pick up an enemy and shake it, it will change to a different variant or a new enemy entirely. In Mario Maker 2, the same thing carry over, and if you shake the Mecha Koopa, you get 2 variants. First, there's the Blast Mecha Koopa, which is the red variant, that if you get close to it, will shoot out a bullet bill, like a bullseye blaster. For those who don't know, the bullseye blasters shoot out homing bullet bills. The second variant, the blue Zappa Mecha Koopa, which if you get in front of at any capacity, will blast you with lightning, making it kinda scary to go up against. Of course, the beam has to be charged, but if you're not quick enough or you panic, you'll definitely get hit. It seems like there's been a lot of Mario World enemies on this list, and it definitely won't be the last, trust me. Either way, the Mecha Koopa is still a fearsome foe to go up against. Who knew toys were so dangerous? Well, I guess Bowser did. Animals in the Mushroom Kingdom don't really exist. Of course, you have Koopas, Cheep Cheeps, and Monty Moles, and a few other. But there's no real distinct animal out there. There's multiple different types of fishes and turtles, but what about pets? There's cat variants, but there's no dogs. Oh wait, I guess there are dogs. Oh, who's a good boy? The Chain Chomp is the closest thing the Mario universe has to dogs, besides that block dog thing from Bowser's Inside Story, but we're only going to talk about that. The Chain Chomps in the Mario universe are dog stand-ins. They don't always share the personality of dogs, but of course they bark like a dog, and they're also just as aggressive as some dog breeds. They're also chained to a pole like real dogs, except the chains are part of their body. Chain Chomps are one of the most intimidating Mario enemies. The loud barking doesn't help with that statement. First appearing in Super Mario Bros. 3, the Chain Chomps have been terrorizing the franchise for a long while. So how do these enemies actually attack? Well, As I mentioned earlier, they're chained to a pole, so every once in a while they'll lunge at you, only being stopped by their chains. But for some reason you can actually ground pound the pole and release them for some ungodly reason. So the only thing keeping a chain chomp from tearing Mario's face off is a weak chain, and Mario will still release the damn things. Mario has absolutely no problem crushing turtles, but will release a killing machine. And I thought I was supposed to be making the jokes. Oh looky looky, we have another Koopa variant. We've already mechanized them and taught them how to play football. What else could we do besides teaching them the way of Harry Potter, glasses and all? The Magic Koopa is one of Bowser's most formidable allies. There's many things that make Magic Koopas dangerous. For one, they can teleport, making them hard to catch, and are probably obnoxious to look at from Mario's point of view. Another magical thing they can do is, well, turn blocks into other enemies. Now, the most famous Magic Koopa is obviously Kamek, Bowser's right-hand man. In a bunch of Mario games you actually face off against him. Most of the time he's quite a challenge, teleporting if you get near or if you don't attack him in time. You can also get rid of the blocks that you are standing on, making it more tricky to actually get to him. Like most enemies on this list, the Magic Koopas make their first appearance in Super Mario World. Even in their debut game, they are still quite dangerous, especially if it's a rare occasion and they're in groups. But unlike most enemies, they don't need to be in groups to be deadly. Apparently, Bowser trusts all the Magic Koopas because every one of them has their own wands, which if you know anything about the Mario lore, Bowser are one of those people that wields one of the magic wands, including his Koopalings. So clearly Magic Koopas must be doing something right, because not even Bowser Jr. has one of them. On the topic of that, it seems like Bowser treats the Koopalings far better than his own biological son. There are many enemies that people downright hate or just think are annoying, and even some cases adding enough of them will make progression completely impossible. The enemy that I'm referring to is quite skilled, if you consider throwing hammers a skill. I don't recall asking for a competitor. First appearing all the way back in 1985's original Mario Bros, the Hammer Bro takes the number 3 spot. I mean, everyone was expecting the Hammer Bro. Usually people put him at number 1. But the other 2 entries I'm going to be talking about are impossible to kill, and last time I checked, Hammer Bros are indeed killable. Hammer Bros are quite skilled at throwing things. They throw a vast variety of things, from hammers, fireballs, ice balls, and even throwing sledgehammers. It's no wonder why these enemies always make it onto the most useful Mario enemies list. There are a few things that make these enemies quite challenging to kill. One, they throw objects quickly and spastically. Plus, jumping every once in a while, making it very stressful when you have to go underneath them and knock the block out, because most of the time you'll probably knock the block out next to them, and they're gonna fall on you and smack you in the face with a hammer. I did mention earlier how there was different varieties of Hammer Bros. There's Fire Bros that shoot out, well, fireballs, Ice Bros that shoot out ice balls, and Sledge Bros. Sledge Bros, as their name implies, don't throw hammers, but sledgehammers. They also stun you if they slam down and you're on the floor. So wonderful. As you could probably imagine, this could combo quite nicely for the Sledge Bros. But unfortunately, like most enemies, they got nerfed in the newer games. Hammer Bros, without a doubt, were more useful in the older games because they were more janky, making them harder to kill. The Mario universe is known for having lots of fishes. There's different types and breeds and variations. It's just like people say, there's plenty of fish in the sea, and goddamn I would not like to meet this one. First appearing in Super Mario 64, Unagi takes the number 2 spot. I mean, what is there really to say about Unagi that hasn't been said 1,000 times? 1, he's scary, and 2, he can't be killed. I think that's enough to qualify for this list, let alone hit the number 2 spot. But just like every other enemies on this list, they've been nerfed in recent years. Unagi in the newer games aren't very scary nor are they dangerous compared to the original Mario 64 version. But the thing is, you were probably expecting Unagi to be on this list at some point, but what you probably weren't expecting was the number 1 spot. Now, what makes a really good Mario enemy, in my opinion, is a few different things that you need to do to qualify for the most useful Mario enemy. Like, you could be hard to dodge, intimidating, being a nuisance or a general obstacle, and being invincible. Well, the number 1 spot is all of those things. For those who don't know, who didn't watch my top 7 worst Mario enemies list, the number 7 spot was the Bullet Bill, but there's a variant of the Bullet Bill that takes the number 1 spot. Some of you might know, some of you may not. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you King Bill. first appearing in New Super Mario Bros. U, and only appearing in that game and its DLC, the King Bill takes the #1 spot as the most useful Mario enemy. King Bills are completely invincible, they're huge and they destroy everything and anything that dares step in its way. The Tsar Bomber of the Mario universe. I imagine this is what Bowser uses for nuclear warfare. I guess Nintendo was still salty about Hiroshima. For the longest time, I always thought, why didn't Bowser just use normal guns instead of these slow-ass bullets? Well, apparently he doesn't need to because he can absolutely nuke Mario. That's all the King Bill is, a glorified nuke. Absolutely radiating with death, unable to be stopped once armed. Somehow, Bowser was able to make an enemy unkillable, but still couldn't make himself unkillable. Maybe Bowser should retire. And that was the video. Mario enemies come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and it's no wonder why Mario looks so old despite only being in his mid-20s during the events of the games. Of course, with this being a top 7, I probably missed a few enemies, and if you don't agree with any of my picks, or all my picks, at the end of the day, it's my silly personal opinion, so leave a comment down below, tell me what you think your top 7 most useful Mario enemies is. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and comment down what you want me to see me do next. My name is Dominic, you've been watching The Expert After Dark, and that was the top 7 most useful Mario enemies. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. The new Super Mario franchise is riddled with problems. There's been thousands of videos made on this platform discussing everything wrong with the new Super Mario Bros. Games, and I think it's a little over-exaggerated. There's only one real title that can be considered bad, but I'll talk about that in another video. The new Super Mario franchise is unoriginal to the max. Almost every game can be interchanged with each other besides one, and that's what people think. However, that's not what I think. I think each of them, besides one, are distinct enough to be considered their own distinct game. Each one brings something to the tables, besides one. Okay, I'll stop now. But I've played every new Super Mario Bros. Game multiple times, and I developed an opinion on a certain one you will most likely probably disagree with. I think New Super Mario Bros. Wii, without a doubt, is the best NSMB game. Now, the DS one is good, it's just a bit jank. In all fairness, it was the first new Super Mario Bros. Game in 14 years. It was also the first new Super Mario Bros. Game. And because of that, it didn't bring a lot to the table. Yes, arguably it's still a really good game. There's a reason why it's the best-selling DS game. And it makes sense why most people would consider it their favorite new Super Mario Bros. Game. It's definitely a worthy successor to its predecessor. Everywhere you go, it's this game that's regarded as the best new Super Mario Bros. Game. But I would beg to differ. I do not believe the DS one is the best new Super Mario Bros. Game. Don't get me wrong, the DS one did a lot of things right. It brought Mario back in a modern light after 14 years. It was well needed. It brought back new life into the Mario franchise. But I believe the DS's successor was in fact the definitive new Super Mario Bros. Game. New Super Mario Bros. Wii. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is the definition of Mario, which what a Mario game should be. One of the best Mario games. Specifically, what it adds in its level design is impeccable, recycling old features and making them 10 times better than they were before. So in this video, I will be going over why I think NSMB Wii is the best NSMB. But before we begin, go down and hit the like button and subscribe button. It helps me out a lot more than you would think. And it's free and it only takes 5 seconds to do. And share this video with anyone and everyone. I'm trying to hit 100 subs by the end of the year. So if you know, you could subscribe, it would really help. My goal is to hit 100k eventually. So with that all being said, let's get into why I think New Super Mario Bros. Wii is the best NSMB game. Also, take a shot every time I say NSMB or New Super Mario Bros. Game. You may be wondering why I picked New Super Mario Bros. Wii and not Super Luigi U. It's well because New Super Luigi U isn't really a game, it's DLC. If it was actually a game by itself, yeah, I would obviously take the win without a doubt. I just can't accept it because it's DLC. It has the same exact map and layout as New Super Mario U, and I think New Super Mario Bros. U is just uninspired. There's no real original level design because it was the last New Super Mario Bros. To come out. There wasn't a lot of ideas that they could do that wasn't already taken from a previous New Super Mario Bros. Game, so by default it got the short end of the stick. Still, it doesn't make me feel any more sympathetic because, well, I don't feel sympathy at all for anything. Also, I will not be talking about anything wrong with New Super Mario Bros. Wii, nothing negative, and I'm not denying the fact that there's stuff wrong with New Super Mario Bros. Wii, because there is. However, I don't need to because this is why New Super Mario Bros. Wii is the best NSMB, not why it's the most okay. You probably already know the shit wrong with this game. I'm not denying that. It's just unnecessary for this video, just like how the worst NSMB game video I'll be doing in a month or two. I'm not going to talk about the good aspects, I'm just focusing on why it's good and bad for each respective video. It's just unnecessary. You already know the type of stuff. So, yeah. New Super Mario Bros. Wii is absolutely not a perfect game. Alright, let's actually begin. Where to start with New Super Mario Bros. Wii? Usually I start with the story, but like every other game, there's not much of a story here. You save Princess Peach, it's the same storylines that's been done 1,000 times. Super Mario Bros. Wii came out in a time where there wasn't much original things going on the Wii. Yes, you had stuff like The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and a few pretty good third-party games, but there still wasn't no real good Mario game. Now, don't get me wrong, there were a few actual decent ones, like Super Paper Mario, and then there was kind of shit ones. But then, by 2009, the savior came. The thing that was going to save the Wii, except it didn't save the Wii because the Wii didn't need to be saved. I mean, in 2008, the Wii sold of 10 million units, so I guess it didn't save the Wii. But it's still a really good Mario game, so it might as well save the Wii. New Super Mario Bros. Wii overall is a really good game. It's generally one of the best Mario games. If I was to make a top 10 best Mario games list again, it would probably fall around number 5. Before NSMB Wii came out, Nintendo didn't put any original classic 2D Mario game platforms on home consoles since Super Mario World on the SNES in 1999, so nearly 20 years. And a lot of people were asking for an original 2D Mario platformer on home consoles because, like I said, it's been nearly 20 years. And people were starting to miss that 2D Mario feeling. So on November 12th, 2009, New Super Mario Bros. Wii was finally released after 20 years of no new 2D Mario platforms on consoles. And what was the consensus at the time? Some people actually thought this game was hard.
New Super Mario Bros. Wii is a tough game. Old school tough.
In God's name do you mean it's challenging? It's probably one of the easiest games I've ever played. Hey dumbass, you have over 200 hours and been playing it for 10 years. Christ, 2014 was already 10 years ago? You're also gonna be 18 in a month. Shut up, old! I'm gonna have to kill you now. Nah, that's all taken care of. Let's actually get into the game. New Super Mario Bros. Wii opens up with, surprise surprise, Princess Peach getting captured. Honestly, the cutscene in the beginning is probably the best. I mean, that's not saying much, there's not much to compete with, but still. After that, you get this little cutscene showing who's the boss of the world, and that's the opening. Super Mario Bros. Wii at its core is a basic Mario game. But it's what it adds that really makes it a good Mario game. New Super Mario Bros. Wii added a handful of new power-ups, some of them being mainstays like the Ice Flower, and then there were some things that were never seen again, besides one time. Mario Wii's gameplay takes the game from New Super Mario Bros. DS and makes it 10 times better. The movement feels a lot better. There's no more of that stupid thing they add where if you jump near an edge, you lose your momentum. If you're good enough in this game like I am, or you're just speedrunning God, you can pass levels quite quickly. This is all due to Mario's excellent movement and moveset, mainly the wall kick and triple jump. And if you master these two mechanics, you can cut through levels quite quickly and take shortcuts that you wouldn't be able to earlier. Mario's movement is really satisfying, and using one of these new power-ups they added, you can get through levels in less than 30 seconds. Using these movement methods, you can save yourself from some unavoidable deaths. Now, New Super Mario Bros. Wii isn't hard. I mean, technically it's the hardest New Super Mario Bros. Game, but it's not really hard at all. There's no real hard moment that will make you rip your hair out. Of course, there are some tedious moments, but tedious doesn't necessarily equal to hard. Of course, there are a few levels in the game that I'd rather pulverize my testicles with a blender than replay again, because Jesus Christ, when good games have bad levels, they have to be really bad to be mentioned, let alone threaten my own balls like that. But in all fairness, I don't think I've ever played a game that didn't have levels that I hated, besides my favorite game, which I guess it really doesn't have levels in that game. But you don't necessarily need levels to be a good game. TF2. Nintendo is consistent with level design. There's only been a few that are atrocious, and my god. What does New Super Mario Bros. Wii do right? Well, a lot of things. Power-ups, level design, and a lot of other things. So let's tackle them one at a time. First, starting with the power-ups. The vast variety of new power-ups Super Mario Bros. Wii added is astonishing. All the power-ups they added are unique. Some of them are original and some of them are returning. And then there are some making their 2D appearance for the first time. Easily my favorite power-up out of the bunch is the penguin suit. It allows you to walk on ice normally and shoot ice balls instead of fireballs. But it also added the ice flower, which by default is less superior than the penguin suit. Huh. Super Mario Bros. DS added a few new power-ups that are generally some of my favorite, like the Mega Mushroom and the Blue Shell. Unfortunately, none of them return in Wii. But who cares, we got the penguin suit. They also brought back the Super Mario Bros. 3 power-up selection screen, except for it's been updated. And I think I'd prefer it to look like this. The next thing is level design, and when it comes to New Super Mario Bros. Wii, in my opinion, this is some of the best level design Nintendo has come up with in a while. But the thing is with Nintendo does things excellently, but not everything Nintendo does is excellent. They're good with coming up with creative ideas, but they never use those ideas. Like, with the World 7 castle, how the castle's broken and it takes place outside. Problem is, Nintendo never uses these ideas to the fullest potential. Maybe they'll use a few ideas, and then, well, they drop the ball hard. Don't get me wrong, Nintendo did add some really good levels, and are some of the most memorable in the Mario franchise. Problem, they are very far and few between. Like World 1, no interesting level. World 2, no interesting level. World 3 has a few interesting levels, like the first level where there's a bunch of penguins sliding by and you have to dodge them. Most of this level lets you slide under penguins too, and it's really fun. What about World 3 Fortress? In the beginning and the end, you have these rotating platforms that you can wall jump to and get up really quickly. What about the level before the castle where you have to play it twice, once by itself and once after hitting this button? World 4, no interesting levels. World 5, no interesting levels. World 6, 5-3, the whole level is made of pipes. 6, that's Fortress, ascended this fortress with 2 giant spiky dildos in the middle, which adds a lot of intensity when you mess up one jump, you're constantly wall jumping, trying not to get crushed. World 7 and World 8 without a doubt has the most interesting levels. It's just odd to me how they saved the best levels besides 8-4. Christ, kill me, I'd rather be sucked into an airplane jet. The new Super Mario Bros. Games are without a doubt completely unoriginal, but they do add interesting things. But sometimes they take things from the older games and make them far better. New Super Mario Bros. Wii reuses ideas that come directly from Super Mario Bros. 3. New Super Mario Bros. 2 also does this, except a lot more obvious. Most enemy types are just new variants of old Mario enemies, like the heavy Parabeetle. But they did add a few new enemies that are completely original, like the penguins, as I mentioned earlier, and the Brawn Balls. And sometimes New Super Mario Bros. Wii even reinvents old enemies. Speaking of returning things from older Mario games, Yoshi finally makes his comeback. A lot of people do complain online how you only get Yoshi from one level and he doesn't follow you out like Super Mario World. But honestly, I don't mind that. I only use Yoshi as a boost or if I need a power-up, which rarely happens. But I still think it's nice to have. And while I'm at it, I might as well mention the boss fights. What do you think I'm gonna say about the boss fights? And to be honest, they're alright. Again, too cheesable, but I would like to mention Bowser Jr.'s second boss fight. Honestly, one of the funnest boss fights the Mario franchise has to offer. And while I'm talking about Bowser Jr., the airships are a neat idea, bringing them back from Super Mario Bros. 3. At the end of the day, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is a really good game, and honestly one of my favorite Mario games of all time. It does a lot of things right, but of course, obviously there are many problems. But looking at it from a normal player's point of view, those things really don't matter. Every time I look at a game, it's from a critic's point of view. And if you're playing a Mario game, or a video game in general, just to play them, my opinions really don't matter at the end of the day. You really shouldn't be bothered by anything negative I say about one of your favorite games. It's just not necessary. And I understand there are Nintendo fans out there that may think New Super Mario Bros. DS is the best. But that was all my opinion, so it really doesn't matter. And that was why I think New Super Mario Bros. Wii is the best New Super Mario Bros. Game. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Children of the Wii U, I am here today to spit absolute truth. This game sucks! Everyone has to get into controversy someday, so why not start today? There's an old saying that's been passed around, and that saying is, first impressions are everything. Goddamn, no wonder why the Wii U failed. New Super Mario Bros. U. It's just not a good game to be launched with. Launch titles are important, and this is not important, especially because a few months ago, New Super Mario Bros. 2 released. You may be wondering why I didn't choose New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the worst New Super Mario Bros. Game. Well, it's because New Super Mario Bros. 2 stands out enough from New Super Mario Bros. DS and New Super Mario Bros. Wii to be considered its own original game. New Super Mario Bros. U, on the other hand, is just New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but with different levels and slightly updated graphics. And one new power-up they added is not original in the slightest. But the thing is, New Super Mario Bros. 2 has an actual good concept, a selling point if you will, coins. And what's New Super Mario Bros. Use? It's just HD Mario. The first HD Mario, that's its only selling point. Comparing the graphics of New Super Mario Bros. Wii to New Super Mario Bros. U is like comparing the art styles between Family Guy and American Dad. Nintendo doesn't surprise me often, but when they do, it's not in a good way. Like, I'm surprised they didn't make New Super Mario Bros. Switch. Instead, they went for a new Mario idea, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Nintendo, unfortunately, has continued this trend with the Kirby franchise, every new game feeling uninspired, not changing much besides visuals. So let's get into why I think New Super Mario Bros. U is the worst New Super Mario Bros. But before we begin, go down and hit that like and subscribe button. Helps me out a lot, more than you would think. And it's free, and it only takes 5 seconds to do. And share this video with everyone and anyone. I'm trying to hit 100 subs by the end of the year, so if you could, you know, subscribe. That would really help. My goal is to eventually hit 100k. So with all that being said, let's get into why New Super Mario Bros. U is the worst New Super Mario Bros. Game. Also, I'm not going to be talking about Deluxe because it's the same fucking game. Now, like the last video, as I mentioned, I'm not going to be discussing anything positive about New Super Mario Bros. U. With that being stated, like last time, I'm not denying that there's anything good about this game. It's just unnecessary for the topic at hand. I'm here to show you why NSMB U is the worst New Super Mario Bros. Game. So there's no point of actually highlighting the good aspects despite them being there. So yeah, this is the last time I'm going to mention it. I'm also not saying that this game is a terrible abomination, it's just really uninspired. Or maybe I'll mention a few good things about it. With all that being said, let's actually get onto why I think New Super Mario Bros. U is the worst New Super Mario Bros. Game. Like last time, let's start with the very brief summary of the non-existent plot that's been going on for 30 years at this point. Just like last time, when the cutscene ends, you get another cutscene showing who's the boss of the world. Very, very original. Okay, let's get this out of the way first. This game is unoriginal to max, like beyond unoriginal. Like, it's genuinely impressive how unoriginal this game is. Let's tackle it one at a time. First, let's start with the map. At first glance, the map might seem different compared to New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but then you realize the world is exactly the same in the same exact order. World 1, Grassland, which is pretty standard Mario affair. World 2, Desert Land. Now you're starting to see the similarities between the other games. World 3, Snowland, a little bit of a coincidence, but what do you say? World 4 is Waterland, a little suspicious. But what's that? World 5 is Jungle. World 6 is Rocky Cliffs, and wouldn't you believe it, World 7 is the Cloudland.
What were they thinking? I'd rather have a buffalo take a diarrhea dump in my ear than play this fucking game.
It's literally the same exact world layout as New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Nintendo. While I'm at it, let's see another thing that New Super Mario Bros. U uses from different Mario games. In New Super Mario World, the main gimmick of the world was the worlds were all named after foods, and wouldn't you believe it again, New Super Mario World U does the same exact thing, but obviously worse. I know in the last video I made about New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I praised it for taking concepts from older games and making them better. Keyword, making them better. New Super Mario Bros. U, however, does not do this, and in some cases it makes it even worse. It's all about execution, and New Super Mario Bros. U fails to deliver on those concepts, making it seem like Nintendo tries to redo what made New Super Mario Bros. Wii great, but if you remember who made this game, you could probably tell what went wrong. Nintendo has a track record of trying to recreate things that made them money and failing, a perfect example being, well, the New Super Mario Bros. Franchise. It's filled to the brim with reused ideas, most of them being hit or miss, mostly missed. The thing is about New Super Mario Bros. U, it's not a bad game in the sense that it's an absolute abomination that plays like shit. It plays like any other Mario game. The difference is just unoriginal. I would still rather to play this game than something like Hotel Mario, but still, if I had an option between any Super Mario Bros. Game, this one would definitely be one of the lower ones I would choose. It's just not a very fun experience, especially because I played New Super Mario Bros. Wii and New Super Mario Bros. U back to back, and I'm so mentally drained on playing Mario games. So let's move on to something different. Like the multiplayer. I was way too retarded to mention this in the last video, but I forgot to mention the multiplayer. Originally it was going to be a big part of the script, but then I forgot to put it in, which happens a lot. Then I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to put that in, and then proceed to hate myself for the rest of the year, which is a daily occurrence. Anyway, a lot of people have quite a few gripes with the multiplayer, both in U and Wii. The biggest problem that you'll see is that you don't walk through each other, constantly bump into each other. You can also pick each other up, which means a lot of accidental deaths, but mainly purposeful death. When I used to play multiplayer, I used to always throw the other players into the pit because it's funny. Like, come on, you can't tell me it's not funny. I specifically remember this one time we were on the final Bowser fight, where the other player was standing on the bridge with Bowser, and when I hit the switch, plummeting both Luigi and Bowser to their deaths. I would say this is my favorite moment that I've ever had with this game. Safe to say my brother was definitely pissed. Anyway, the multiplayer mode is very take it or leave it for me. If you're gonna play a Mario game to beat it, I wouldn't recommend you play multiplayer, but if you're just trying to have fun with your friends, then yeah, go ahead, throw each other into the pits of hell. Another thing that I didn't mention was the Koopalings returning after like 14 years of being absent, which is odd because one of the biggest parts of these games, which is a good thing to some some people at least. The Koopalings in this game specifically, I just find not that interesting of bosses. Just like last time, they're incredibly easy to cheese. The boss fights overall are just not good in this game, especially the final boss fight. Which isn't too surprising because New Super Mario Bros. Wii final boss was probably the best in the entire Super Mario franchise. So trying to follow up never really ended well for Nintendo. Not even New Super Mario Bros. 2's final boss got anywhere close to New Super Mario Bros. Wii's final boss. However, the boss fight in New Super Mario Bros. U is atrocious. It's just not very interesting or creative. You have to jump on Junior when he slams down, knocking him out of the clown cart. Then you have to use the clown cart and drive it into Bowser's skull. One thing I find really funny about this fight is the fact that Bowser takes fire damage. So you could kill him with a fire flower, which I have before. It takes like 20 minutes, but I still didn't, and it was pretty funny. I mean, if I had to rank every New Super Mario Bros. Final boss, it would most likely end up at number 2. I think both the handheld New Super Mario Bros. Games handled the final boss very poorly, especially New Super Mario Bros. DS, with a complete joke of a final boss. In fact, you don't even have to kill Junior to hit the switch. If you jump over Bowser and Junior, you can hit the switch surprisingly easy. Getting the timing down is somewhat precise, but besides that, it's doable. Or if you want super easy baby mode, you can just bring a Mega Mushroom. New Super Mario Bros. 2's final boss is just jumping between platforms and dodging Bowser's swipes. It's kind of a mixture of the ending of Bowser's Final Castle in Wii and Bowser's final boss in Wii, except he's not cheesy. But if I had to choose New Super Mario Bros. U's best boss fight, that's difficult. Well, let's rule out both the Koopalings and Boom Boom, which leaves the final boss in Bowser Jr. Oh, Christ. In the last video, I praised Bowser Jr.'s boss fight as some of the best in the entire franchise. In New Super Mario Bros. U, Jr. returns, except, shit. Bowser Jr.'s boss fights from New Super Mario Bros. Wii to U is not difficult. It's just extremely underwhelming. Bowser Jr.'s boss fights aren't bad per se, just incredibly watered down, especially after New Super Mario Bros. Wii had such a good second boss fight. They also added Baby Yoshi's. That's right, there was no transition. There's not gonna be a transition, so we're jumping right into it. I don't use them. I usually pick them up just to throw them in the pits. Honestly, they're more annoying than anything, especially because they like to sing with the song, which is really annoying. There's 3 different types of Baby Yoshis. The pink one that bubble up like a balloon, the blue ones that shoot out balloons, the gold one or yellow one, whatever you want to call it, that lights up a room when shooken. They even brought back Yoshi too, but he's just the same as last time, so useless. Both Yoshi and Baby Yoshi aren't very important. You don't really need them. Not even for star coins, because, well, the new power-up. Speaking of which, last time I talked about power-up, level design, and by that extension, movement. God, there's a lot of things to talk about. So let's tackle them one at a time, starting with the power-ups. Jesus Christ, it's the same. It's the same as Wii. They added one new power-up, which is the Acorn. It's stupid and I hate it. It's just a mixture of the cape and Tanuki suit, being able to glide down and having a little boost when the Wii remote is shaken. The gliding is probably the most useful thing of this power-up. If nothing else, it's third hit, which you really don't need because this game is piss easy. Level design! It's not bad, but it doesn't mean it's good. There's no memorable levels. The level design is somewhat good and somewhat bad. Unlike New Super Mario Bros. Wii, there's not a single level that I can remember besides the airship, which, well, because it's the airship. It's not like the other levels, so it's clearly gonna stand out. Except it doesn't stand out that much. Nintendo isn't just incompetent, but lazy at some point. Like the World 7 Castle. In New Super Mario Bros. Wii, it was outside, and then in New Super Mario Bros. U, guess what? It's outside again. Except there's no spiky dildos. Rest in peace. One thing I thought Nintendo should have added in this game was taking advantage of the story. What do I mean by that? Well, usually you start in World 1, which is also Grass World, but then you end in World 8, which is always Lava World. What if Nintendo swapped them around, starting at Lava World and ending at Grass World? How would that make sense? Well, if you pay attention to the very little story Nintendo made for this game, you get kicked out of Princess Peach's castle and you have to make your way back. I think it would have been a really cool idea. Nintendo could have done a lot of creative ideas, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Nintendo just wanted to do the same exact thing, same exact world, in the same exact order as New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Like I mentioned in the last video, Nintendo does things excellent, but not everything Nintendo does is excellent. The movement is exactly the same, so buttery smooth. They didn't add anything and they didn't subtract anything. So consider that a good thing. Except, no, it's not. Because one of the main reasons why the movement in New Super Mario Bros. Wii was good was the level design. There's only a few levels in this game you can actually get to utilize Mario's movement to full potential. What's that? You want me to actually talk about something good? Okay, alright. I'll discuss one good thing about this game, and it's the graphics. I know in the beginning I mentioned comparing the graphics between Wii and U was like comparing Family Guy that I saw to American Dads, but honestly, this game looks really nice at some points, even better than some games released in 2023. I only really noticed this when I actually played the game to get gameplay for this video, especially looking at the final boss fight. The background is honestly beautiful for this game released in 2013. It's spectacular. Even in World 8-1, you can see the castle in the background, which gives it a sense of epicness, like you're about to face your final challenge. Because you are! At the end of the day, New Super Mario Bros. U is just a very underwhelming and uninspired game. It's not atrocious or unplayable, it's just a mediocre Mario game, but it came out in a time where everyone was sick of Mario. Yes, in 2012 there was a time like that. New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Mario Bros. Wii came out within months of each other, and everyone was just tired of it. But going back to it, it's playable, it's just really annoying. Would I recommend you play it? If you haven't played it in a while, sure, go ahead, but there's nothing too exciting. But with all that being said, that was why I think New Super Mario Bros. U is the worst New Super Mario Bros. Game. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for playing my game.
We'll see about that.